Are you a brewhead? I'm a brewhead. Are you a brewhead? I'm a brewhead. Y'all are brewheads? Yeah, we brewheads. So pour a glass of craft beer, we can do this. Yeah.
What's good, y'all? This is C Certified Brewhead.
And I am Nathan from Nathan Does Beer.
And welcome to episode 8 of the Business of Beer here on BOS Podcast. This is I feel like it's been ages since we've done one of these, eh?
It has, and even longer since since we've done one together. Because I know you've done because you've done a couple without me, I think, or a couple with Tiff. Was it?
Do you know what? We didn't end up recording it. We're going to do it in February, but the last one was Zenon and Aiden. Zenon and
okay, that was the last one.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, so yeah, then it has been a little while. I'm not going to fuck up like I did on the last episode, and this is in fact the first Business of Beer of 2025.
There we go. We didn't fuck up because you didn't consider it. It's totally fine. Yes, first Business of Beer 2025. Definitely got a lot more coming this year, and this specific episode, I feel like we've been talking about this one for like a year or however long.
For ages, yeah.
Forever.
I've been excited to do this one for quite some time.
Yes, same. And this topic, as you may have seen if you've seen the title, we're going to be talking this evening about independent bottle shops in Ontario, and that is
a topic that means a lot to both of us.
Yeah, exactly right. I mean, if people listen, if you're regular listeners or viewers, you'll know how much we rave about just the fact that they exist. When I was in Montreal, how excited I was that these things became legal during the pandemic. So we haven't to date. This is the first time we're actually had a bottle shop on to get into the nitty gritty of just a shop. I mean, we've had Evan from Wheeled Brew on the regular series, which was amazing. Rest in peace, Wheeled Brew, but hopefully some good stuff to come. But that was more about the business, that specific business. So this one tonight, we're really going to get into all of those elements of the independent bottle shops that I imagine all the questions that you and I both just have around this, and sort of the nuances, how it works, how they work with breweries, you know, what it actually meant for their other businesses, because these independent shops we're talking to this evening have other businesses that these shops are attached to. Yeah. So I'm excited to get into it and to really get like down and dirty. And we have a sick lineup of beer. Obviously, we're talking to independent bottle shops who stock the best of the best. So it doesn't get much better than this, huh?
Yeah.
All right. So every single time, I really got to have like a faster way to do this, but I just don't think there is. Okay, wait. I got to get the little claps. Okay, guys, please welcome Chris from Durand and Mark from Sidewalk in the building.
Yeah.
Yes. You know the vibe, boys. Man, I got to wait for him to stop. You can't wait for the audience. Boys, welcome. Finally having you guys on. God damn it.
Yeah, thanks for having us. I'm super pumped to be here.
I'm both Nathaniel and I are pumped as hell. Yeah, wicked to have you. It's actually weird because I've only, I guess, Mark, I know we met both you guys. I don't think, I know Mark, because I think we must have spoken on FaceTime before. It's the first time I've seen you, Chris, on some sort of digital screen. So it's a new experience. Guys, super excited to have you here. Really keen to get into a lot of the topics. We've got some super fun stuff that we're going to be talking about tonight. And, hopefully people come out of this, understanding a bit more about the business models and about how this works and how breweries can get involved if those who aren't yet. So you guys curated a super fire lineup of beer, and we're kicking off with this one right here. Ooh, there he is. Look at that. We're going Sun and Hills regular beer. I imagine rice lager. Hell yeah. Let's go.
Yeah.
4.5. Talk to us about why we're drinking first this brewery, and what this brewery, how you guys feel about them, and this particular beer as well, aside from being readily available in January.
Yeah, I love Sun and Hill. I think they make amazing beer, great lagers. I love the short can format, and I just think everything they make is like really clean and good. I'm always happy to drink it. Lots of good memories drinking Sun and Hill beers, packing backpacks full of it, and going on adventures.
Hell yeah!
I always like clean, really good lagers. Honestly, one of the most beautiful breweries I've been to in Ontario.
It is really nice out there.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've had many similar experiences to you, Mark. Just enjoying it, before having a bottle shop, even too. It was one of the kind of one of my more crucial sort of introductions to craft beer back in the day, like lager wise, outside of IPAs and stuff. Because I definitely started more as like an IPA guy, and yeah, so Sonnet Hill was one of the first that I really started to appreciate all the kind of work and styles they were putting out, and yeah, everything's just so crisp and clean. And I mean, also from a bottle shop, they're one of my favorite people to work with too, because everything is run very well. So we'll get into more of that later, but I always love working with them too, because things are super straightforward. But
that's awesome. Love hearing that,
particularly
about great breweries, because I imagine, we'll definitely get into that, because I'm very curious how that all goes, and I know that some breweries are not used to the small things that they need to do to make it as simple as possible to work with businesses like you guys who proactively promote them. So hell yeah, Sonnet Hill. I've only been there one time, and I got there like 30 minutes before closing on like a Sunday, so I didn't really get to experience the full house thing, but it was very pretty. The whole field and like staff was super nice, so it's wicked.
Yeah,
gentlemen, shall we get this in us?
Cheers,
boys.
Cheers.
Great to have you on, fellas.
Hell yeah. Money. So this is great. What's the this just says rice lager made with our friends Sean and Mariko from RGLR, which I guess is a regular, and Hako Gakko, which I guess is some looks like Japanese word.
Yeah, so regular actually was a coffee shop.
There you go.
Just outside of the junction. So they did coffee and like sake and some beers and stuff. They were a really great coffee shop in Toronto. And then something happened with their lease, and they ended up closing up. So now they're working on launching their own roastery, and I think they're looking at doing some stuff with their own distilling and things like that. So
okay,
yeah. So they're. I had no idea that they did any work with Sonnet Hill, but when I saw this, I was pretty pumped to see they were still doing stuff around.
No shit, that's super sick. I love that. So that's an interesting concept, like a coffee shop and sake bar. It's super random. So it's got barley, cal roast rice, German hops, and lager yeast. So yeah, because it's got this like fruity, like it's super light, like the rice lager, but there's like you guys getting that? There's like a fruity, like the hop thing going on there that is almost more like a West Coast Pils or like a dry hop lager or something.
Yeah, definitely like a nice citrus hit. I always feel like Sonnet has a bit of that. Yeah.
Yeah, Calvin does some really wicked work with this stuff. I feel like he's like. Do you guys feel that Sonnet Hill gets the credit that they're due based on just good people, great beer, great taproom experience? I know they're kind of far, but like,
it feels like it's one of those places that like, if you like it, you really love it, But I feel like there's a lot of people that aren't familiar with them or just don't know, haven't tried. They just don't know how good the beer is. So,
yeah, I would agree with that. I would say that brewers absolutely give them their props. I don't think they get enough enough hype from the public. But I remember the first time Bebo was on the podcast, I remember him raving about Sonnet Hill.
Maybe that's what put me onto it.
It might have been, but the brewing community in Ontario in general has nothing but good things to say about them.
Yeah, I think there's definitely. I don't think they get enough love from our customers, or at least my customers. I mean, we sell them, no doubt. Like they move in our fridge, but I feel like people aren't as excited about it as I am, especially when they're releasing new stuff. And I remember when I first opened, I stocked so many of their 750 bottles, thinking like, "Oh man, these are gonna fly off the shelf." I love these beers, and like never moved, right? And I had to talk people into drinking especially the ones that were like the Dandelion one. There's a bunch of them that were just like so good, but people were just not.
Yeah, I have the same thing happen here. They put out a corn saison last year, and it was like one of my favorite beers of the whole year. And same thing. And it was in a smaller format bottle, but it ended up sitting around the shop, a little bit longer. But anyone that came in, I'm like, it's amazing. You got to try it.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, that's something we actually also I'd like to get into at some point as well tonight, is like the styles that move and don't move. I can't speak to as much for yours, for your spot, Mark. I know I can, every time I come into Durant, I know. I always joke that like Durand is my personal. I don't know if I say this online. I don't want to put it out there too much because then people will come. But it's my personal barn. Oh, we got some pop action. I love it. Barn Cat cellar, because it's So and most of it goes, but it's the stuff that I'm like, are you guys insane? Like all of these beers are here. And I imagine you have something similar, Mark, with like just all these killer like bottles of just whether it's barrel aged stouts from like Counterpart or Third Moon or the old the Barncast stuff, which is now like legacy classics, like it's gone once it's gone type shit, and things like that.
I don't have a big cellar area here. Basically, everything I bring in, it just goes in the fridge. Whether it's like a big stout, barley wine, saison, everything's in the fridge basically until it's gone. So there's like a few things that I'll hang on to, mainly for myself, and then if I feel like putting them out, I will, but I don't have like a big reserve like Chris does over there.
Totally. Well, that makes sense. I mean, it's you guys are in different areas. People who don't know, Durand is in Hamilton and Sidewalk's in Kitchener. Oh, sorry, Waterloo, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I always just assume it's all the same. Is Kitchener the bigger city of the two?
They're basically the same city.
That's why I always in my head I kept thinking Kitchener. I don't know why.
Yeah.
Apologies to everybody in Waterloo. My bad.
It's all good.
Okay, I don't want any beef out there, All right. So obviously for this we have a bunch of we actually take some notes because we're going to cover some serious stuff. So the first thing I want to get into is, as we sort of alluded to in the beginning, the background on like the law that changed in Ontario during the pandemic, as far as that allowed bars, restaurants, and cafes and other different places to sell packaged beer and wine. And also allowing those independent stores, like if Nate and I wanted to just rent a store and like buy a whole bunch of product, we were able to do that. So could you guys let's just start at how it began, because this is only since my guess is 2021, maybe 2022,
2020,
or even 2020, eh?
Yeah.
Okay.
It started to roll out, anyways. Yeah. I don't know if you want to take it or I can. Mark was open before I was.
Okay.
We sort of were in the process of opening a bar when COVID hit. So our plan was to open the bar that we now have for COVID. So we sort of were working on opening that, and then COVID hit, and then we sort of did we wanted to, we never really thought there was a possibility to sell stuff to go, but we were in the process of opening the bar. So once we were allowed to do that, we got our license during COVID and kind of, I don't know, I hate to use the word pivot because we heard that so much, but we pivoted to a bottle shop so we could actually have a bar. Yeah, so that's how it started for us. But I know, Mark, you were opening before us. So
yeah, well, for me, it was when everything first went on lockdown, I always had like a good beer selection here, but usually it was maybe like 10 or 12 beers, like really tight curation. We weren't known as like necessarily a go-to beer spot. It was just like we were a cafe that had a good beer selection. But when the lockdown happened, I was like, I want to sell all this beer because, I just don't want it sitting around. I don't know how long we're going to be closed. So I sort of did like a bottle shop, like pop-up thing where we sold all the beer we had. And then that went really well. So I did a few things where it was like a local mixed six-pack, or like sort of like surprise curated mixed packs that, Toronto's finest or whatever. And those went pretty well. So it was pretty soon after that I was like, I'm just going to lean into it. It's something I've always wanted to do. So started off with just one small fridge, filled it up. And basically for the first 2 years, we were just operating with like a sliding window onto the street. But that was sort of how it started for us, was with like the little like pop-up sales and stuff like that before we went full steam.
Interesting.
So you essentially had to be a restaurant with a license to be able to be a bottle shop, essentially. Like,
okay.
The whole idea was it was allowing restaurants to make a little bit of extra money, get rid of some of their alcohol while it was COVID, through like delivery or pickup. Well, I guess delivery kind of came later, but through pickup. So essentially, yeah, you needed a liquor license and you had to sell food. Like you had to be an actual, like a proper restaurant or a cafe. Like you couldn't just get, like you mentioned, you couldn't just get, you couldn't just rent a store and start selling beer. You'd actually have to sell food first. Maybe not first, but at the same time, like you'd have to have some sort of food program. I think
they sort of, sorry. Yeah, I think they like when they would look at businesses that were trying to sell alcohol to go, it would be like, what is the primary means of business for this place? Like, is it a sit-down restaurant? Do they have food? And you basically needed to have like X amount of tables and chairs in there to be able to do it legally. And the food thing was a big factor. And that's sort of what didn't open the door to people who just wanted to like open a bottle shop. So you really had to be, as Chris said, like set up to be a restaurant or a cafe or whatever already.
Okay. So I think that's probably a bit of a misconception and at least a misconception that I had for a while. So based on, if I'm understanding you right, it would be the kind of thing that like you couldn't just rent a space with a bunch of fridges in it and sell it with bags of chips, because that's not because that's still not like, because then like selling food is not really your primary business, is not a primary business model. Do I have that right?
Yeah. So even to this day, yeah.
Really?
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
What about that one in Toronto, 4th and 7th, whatever it was called? Like they just had, was that a cafe or something?
They were a bar. Yeah, they were a bar cafe first.
What about Volo? Because it's like a separate space next to the bar. I know the bar sells food.
Yeah, so it's.
But I think that's enough, probably.
That's enough. Yeah, so as long as you're under the same license, essentially, like that's sort of how it worked for us too. Like it was our cafe, and then we opened the bottle shop in a space beside us, but it was technically still the entire space. So, and we obviously had our AGCO license under the coffee shop, so it allowed you to kind of expand into a new space. But even still, it still is like that now. Like no one, like even like say. Like I know Lovebird. I know you guys have chatted about them lots.
Yeah.
That's why they had to open like a snack bar first. Like they actually had to like serve proper snacks or proper meal, like proper stuff. So it's more of an actual bar than a bottle shop. The bottle shop is kind of like secondary. Like you can't go to the AGCO and say I want to open a bottle shop. It doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Like the license doesn't exist.
This is absolutely news to us. Like I had no idea. Like I really thought that's what the whole point of it was. So then. Sorry, Nate, just quickly, what's the deal with the chips then? Is it just because it has to be with some sort of food purchase and that's the cheapest possible method of getting that, just 50 cents or whatever? So you're like, yeah, cool, whatever. And you get a little pack of chips, who's complaining? But like, is that the way around it to like when you buy, I know if you go to a restaurant, you order beer, you have to have food with it. I know I've been with family before and they came in just to a restaurant and just want a drink. They're like, I'm sorry, I can't do that. You have to have food. So was that the reason?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much. So like for us, for instance, I mean, I guess they could say that we had to sell a croissant with every beer we sold, I guess, if they really wanted to be technical, but it's kind of just been a way for people to get around it. And at the beginning, they were a little bit more like tight about it. Like they sort of inspectors would. Well, I don't know if Mark ever had the experience, but I had inspectors come in a few times and be like, "You're only selling." They just kind of gave you a hard time, like making like they wanted to know that we were selling, and they wanted us to offer things more than just a bag of chips. So we'd always have like a plate of cookies available as well, just to kind of make them happy.
Was that?
I remember getting inspections, and I'm always like. Trying to get as much information out of these inspectors as possible, right? Because I wanted this to be something that was sustainable and I could do long term. So I'm like asking all the questions I could. And in those early times, like the inspectors didn't even have answers for me. Like I think they were honestly coming around to shops like ours to see like, how is this working and how can we write more legislation to like either limit or expand or, you know, like I felt like I wasn't getting any answers to the questions I had, but
it really seems like a work in progress.
I guess it was.
Yeah. I always said like they always kind of seemed like they were looking for ways to not let you do it, essentially. So to put it in a very, you know,
basically, yeah. I've heard from multiple people. I can't speak for Waterloo, but at least Hamilton is the default answer is no. And good luck trying to get hold of somebody. And then even if you can, then they often will give you the wrong information. Then you have to go through and find clause 16BIX or some shit and show them. Yeah. And like it's out of control. So I don't know how you guys deal with it. It's insane.
There's a lot of places that started up and were doing it without having a kitchen or without having seating. So people it was a real gray area there in the early days, and it might still be. I don't know. I haven't tried to open one recently, but it was like you would see places open that were just selling alcohol, like bottles of wine and beer to go, and they didn't have a kitchen. They didn't have stuff. I'm sure some of those places still exist too. So I think
I think most of them became they definitely. I think some do exist still, but I think most of them ended up introducing kitchens or whatever so that they could keep doing it. I know this is a beer podcast, but Grape Witches in Toronto, they fully were selling bottles of wine, and then they've now since opened up a proper sort of restaurant space or a snack space. And they've done that now, and they've now opened a second location of that. So, but before when it first opened, they were just selling wine and chips. It was just. But I think
so. They were allowed to then, or they were skirting the law by doing that. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I think it's
gray area.
It's it was more just waiting to get shut down, and I think at that point during the pandemic, they weren't really looking to shut down, and inspectors weren't out as much. So.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Geez, Wild West shit, huh?
Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So then you guys there's some good segues. So we established that that's how it started, and that's how both you guys started. So what can and what can't you sell currently in the bottle shop side of things? Whoever wants to go.
We can. I think the thing I always think of as limiting is you see all these amazing beers being produced throughout Canada or in the United States. And it's impossible to just pick and choose which breweries you want to buy beer from. I can't call up a brewery that I like in New York and say, "Hey, can I get a case of this?" Right? So,
right.
Or even breweries from Quebec that I love. I would stock in a heartbeat if I could, but there's just those sort of import laws and legislation around what you can bring in. So that to me is the big limiting factor. Is that we're not able to do that.
Yeah. I mean, that's okay. So that's the main thing. I mean, I guess that's pretty standard through LCBO and through bars and everything, which is crazy annoying. And that's a whole other podcast in and of itself, because it's insanity. They have the same nonsense in the States, I guess, too. So then are you limited to, obviously I've never seen liquor in any store, bottle shop, convenience. So I guess you can't do liquor.
No, we can.
You can.
You are technically allowed to. I've sold a few bottles of Willibald back in the day when we first opened. Because technically you can. Restaurants were selling bottles of. Well, I guess it's still kind of one of those gray areas.
You know what? You mentioned I've seen it in Detour. I've seen them have Willibald gingerbread gin, and it never even clicked. Yeah. That's a full bottle, and I'm not even the premixes and the
the actual bottle.
The actual bottle, yeah. Fuck.
Yeah, so you can.
Okay.
I think. I mean, that's the other thing we don't really know.
Right.
It's very strange. I don't think a bar could actually just sell you a 40 of gingerbread gin at the bar without serving you a bunch of food, right? I think that's a smart serve violation, but there is no real guidelines for that. So we've sort of treaded on we don't really want to get into that. Also, I don't know, hard liquor introduces some I don't know,
different
things, right? Different people are coming into your store looking for hard liquor. Not that it's a bad thing per se, but it just when you see there's issues at a liquor store, it's usually people trying to steal bottles of liquor, not a can of beer. So
gotcha.
We've sort of treaded a bit. I mean, based on our location too, we're in downtown Hamilton, so things can happen. So we kind of stay away from that. And I also just think it's a little cost prohibitive too. Buying a case of 12 bottles of gin or something is a lot more. You're putting a lot more money into that, right? So for us, that's kind of why we don't tread into that area as much, but I'm not sure if it's actually legal or not.
Gotcha. So beer and wine is the legal things.
Beer and wine is definitely legal, yeah. Yes.
And is obviously, Mark, you established that the beer has to be made in Ontario.
It doesn't have to be. We'll get lambic and stuff sometimes, but if it's imported, LCBO basically.
Okay, so you get access to import lists to get stuff.
Yeah, or we could just go right into LCBO and buy beer there and bring it in here. That doesn't make any sense.
Really?
Yeah.
We could.
Why? Why is that allowed? I know you're buying it directly from the breweries, and you buy it at retail from the breweries then. Is that correct? Or is it, I know that's we're skipping, actually, you don't have to get too much into that yet, but just quickly, is that really how it works? Because I know if you walk into LCBO, that means you're paying retail.
Depends. I mean, some breweries offer discounts or whatever licensee pricing, but yeah.
Okay.
I'm just like, I don't think either of us would go into the LCBO to buy beer to sell at our shops, but that's
redundant,
what restaurants do. And any restaurants that you see, like you can buy beer to go, it's like they're just getting it at the LCBO. So
right. Do you know what? I've worked at restaurants, of course. I know that's what they do. Yeah, I never even considered that. Okay. So then for the wine, does that have the same rules? Or is that also, there's local, like you go to Rosewood or Back 10 or something, but then you can go to the same LCBO list and get stuff from Cali and da-da-da?
So yeah, I mean, we like I guess you could say our business model is not having any wine that's available in the LCBO. So we only work with private wine agents. So yeah, we work with there's a bunch of different private wine agents in the province. So they're the ones they have import licenses. So they're making connections with wineries in France and wherever, all over the world. And then they're bringing it in Ontario, going through the LCBO process, and then they sell it to us at a licensee price, and then we resell that. So, and we're only picking, some of their wines go into the LCBO, but we're trying to pick wines that are not going to, so the smaller sort of batch wines. But yeah, it is sort of the same way. Yeah.
Interesting. And do you do wine then, Mark, as well? Or are you stuck with beer?
No, I'll get stuff from like Revel Cider occasionally. They do the EB wines.
Nice.
But I'm not much of a wine drinker, so I don't feel like I have enough knowledge or, passion about the product to sell it.
That completely makes sense.
I would to, but
yeah, I totally get it though. Like if you're not really into it, then perhaps you don't even know what people. Do people come in? Like I've been in Durand and seen multiple people. Like almost every time there's someone looking at wine, it's like I see that a lot. Do you get people come in, Mark, on your side that are asking for wine at all?
Yeah, we get people come in occasionally looking for it. It would probably be a good business decision for me to have some type of wine selection, but I'm into the beer.
Yeah. Hey, brother. I feel you're preaching to the choir, my guy.
Yeah.
Okay. On that then, do you know what? That was actually a kind of beautiful segue. The next thing I wanted to touch on there was how you guys curate your fridges. So essentially, Chris, if I'm hearing right, and I kind of knew this anyway, but you don't buy anything that's from the LCBO, and I'm inferring here. My guess is the intention behind that is to provide a unique shopping experience and essentially a unique selling proposition, so that people have a real reason to shop at an independent bottle shop because they can get the stuff where you've curated it from local, either importers or from local producers. That if I wanted that Third Moon beer, I'm going to have to go to Third Moon. Otherwise, I can't go to the LCBO and get it. Is that essentially the intention?
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much like the whole idea is like, I always think like, why do we exist? And we exist because we're bringing products that are hard to get. Like that's the whole thing. The curation is definitely 1A, and 1B is we can't compete with LCBO prices. So I feel pretty like, even like, not to get off track here, but one of the reasons I don't have as much Bellwoods in the fridge anymore is because so much of it's at the LCBO, and someone goes to the LCBO and buys it for I don't know what they sell it there, maybe $4.50 or something like that, and then I'm selling it now at like $7 or whatever it is, and then people are asking me why I'm selling it at that price. It's the conversation that, I mean, it's a much longer conversation that people don't even want to have, but it's just we can't compete with price at the LCBO, so it doesn't really make sense to ever have LCBO listed products. I mean,
totally makes sense. Is it the same vibe for you then, Mark?
Yeah, pretty much. Try to have unique offerings, try and make sure everything's as fresh as possible. I think along with not being able to compete on pricing with LCBO, it's like we're able to do so much more than they can by, maintaining refrigerated temperatures for all the beers and having new stuff come in all the time. There's not red tape for a brewery or for us to buy from a brewery to put in our fridge, right? If you want to get your beer in the LCBO as a brewery, that takes a lot of time, a lot of work. You need to basically give it to them. And, so I think that we can offer just like a different selection and make sure the products are treated properly. And that's not really stuff that you get there.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah,
that's true.
Yeah.
And also like in between, like, Waterloo and Hamilton, like fair sized cities, each one must have like 20, 30 LCBOs or more. And like anyone can, anyone in those cities can go to any one of those LCBOs and and get what they need from it. Like from any of those, having the same thing as them isn't much of a reason to get them through your doors. So, I think it makes sense that the stuff that you're selling there is not going to be things that you can get at the LCBO, because kind of what's the draw with that, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. I mean, for me, personally, is like, it's very much the same sort of ethos as that we have at our coffee shop. I mean, we've been bringing in coffee from, all over the world for the last 8 or 9 years that we've been open. So the whole idea was always kind of to curate some stuff that people couldn't get, or to help people get it more easily. So so that's kind of, we're always just trying to like bring stuff that we really love that is not that hard, there's not that easy to find. I mean, half of the stuff, I mean, it's getting easier now that everything is on the internet now, but I feel like like, especially like, not to go off on the rails here on coffee, but like, it was so hard to find all these different roasteries, and we brought them into people and just sort of like opened up a new world to people. And I think that's the same with beer too now. And I mean, like I said, Mark was open before I was, and I remember going to Sidewalk Shop and being introduced to Shortfinger because of Mark's shop, and I had no idea who Shortfinger was. And then I even went to a Bruck's House, which used to be in Hamilton. They had a bottle shop as well, and I remember that's the first time I ever had Third Moon. Right about maybe a couple weeks after they opened, and it was so. I mean, I always just really loved being exposed to those kind of new things, and always like kind of doing that for other people too.
That's sick, man. That is one thing. I mean, I wish I'd been to Sidewalk to speak to that as well. But I know, like, one thing that always tripped me out, like, I've been to that Tom Bargain, I think it's pronounced, in Winnipeg. Like in 2017, we always go and find, Tiff and I are huge on coffee, love it probably as much as beer. And I've seen it in Durand like 2 or 3 times. It always tripped me out. I'm like, oh man, that's fucking, I didn't even know they were a roaster. We just found them in Winnipeg. Yeah. So it is equally cool, and I like that rotating thing. And I like, from obviously hearing from you both, that ethos of, I guess, like, not even just local, but like, as in like immediately local, but like introducing people to new experiences, to new products that maybe they hadn't thought of, whether it's from coffee beans to wine to beer and different producers. And that's kind of part of, like, because if you didn't want that, then go to Starbucks. Like, if you're coming in to see you guys, you're coming in to get third wave coffee and done exceptionally well. But then now on top of that, you both have these incredible selections of other local products that just sort of round out the experience. And that's why I was losing my mind in Montreal, because there's been specialty beer stores out there forever, but I came back here a lot. I was always visiting here, and it was just always annoying as hell, because all I really could go, I'd go to a brewery or I'd go to the LCBO, and there was no middleman. I was used to, like, programmed from Montreal to go to specialty beer stores that are very thoughtful about their curation. So to find that here, I was stoked. And I was saying off air, like, the fact that independent bottle shops exist saves. I don't know what I would do without it, to be honest. I think it's, like, so important what you both do. Like Nate and I'm saying, like, it's how we get the vast majority of our local products. Is that fair to say, Nate?
Yeah, I think it's good for fans who want to be trying, like, they have their favorite breweries. People who are more into beer, they want to get this Badlands IPA, but they don't want to pay for shipping, or they don't want to get 4 of them. So it's like, you pay a little bit more, but you can just get like 1 of everything, right? So having the whole selection there is, like, I think, appealing for the people who aren't as into beer. And then, Chris, to speak to what you were saying about people trying new things and getting excited, like, just to come in and you're like, oh, that can looks cool. I want to try that, and then they'll hear or see a brewery that they didn't even know existed. So, yeah.
Yep.
It's super cool, and that part exactly that Nate we always talk about. What you said, Mark.
We always talk about it. Talk about exactly that. Like not that we don't love buying direct from breweries, and and there's a handful that I do still order direct from every now and then. Like when there's a big release to grab, but it's the kind of thing of I much prefer paying like a couple of dollars markup per can to be able to get 12 cans from 4, 5, or 6 different breweries, as opposed to needing to order 12 from the same from the same brewery, pay $10 for shipping, and and all of this. That's just the way that C and I like to buy beer, and it's great to finally be able to do that.
Yeah. I mean, you also, shipping is definitely improved, but I mean, at least you also know that, it's cold. You take it home, you keep it cold, right? And it doesn't get lost in whatever shipping place for a couple days or.
Yep. Which can happen. Depending on the logistics company, it can sometimes end up in a warehouse for a couple of days, and and especially too at this time of year, if it's on trucks for long periods of time, at the temperatures that we've been having this week, that can get a bit dicey.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Yeah. And even just the fact, I think it's about time for the next beer, but the fact that you guys go to the breweries, to specific ones who don't actually offer an option to ship because they're that small, that's the coolest thing. That's the stuff I feel like that I tell people. If I'm going to tell people the selling points are what you said, Mark, the no 4-packs, no shipping, and then the fact that you guys go to Third Moon every week. You go to Badlands every week. I can get Badlands beer at Durand at 1 p.m. on a Thursday afternoon, and it doesn't come out of Badlands until Friday. That's how gangster that shit is. I think that is the coolest thing to me. It's not only the most convenient thing, but it's like I see it as supporting the breweries directly, because it is directly. There's no middleman. You guys are going to the breweries, but then I'm supporting you guys for making my life easier. So it's paying it forward that. And then on top of that, I can go and get a fire coffee too, which I would do I'm not going in there and not getting a coffee. Crazy. It's just such a, I can't speak enough on how, I don't know. I feel like things would suck without businesses like you guys around, for real. It would make it so much harder to fucking drink, man. Next one.
Let's do it.
All right. Time for some haze, boys and girls. Gentlemen, tell us why you selected this phenomenal brewery from Kingston. Are we ready? Are we ready?
Yeah.
Here we go. Yeah, look at that. Yeah, look at that shit. Fuck yeah. Tell us.
Yeah, Chris and I have talked about Fine Balance many times, and it's just a brewery we both really like. And then sort of in the same vein as Son & Hill, it's maybe a brewery that not a lot of people know about. So we wanted to share something from them. Just to
couldn't agree more. They're an absolute fave of ours too.
Oh yeah, Andrew's a gem.
Yeah,
they've been knocking out killer stuff since we started, and yeah, it is an interesting one. We always, since we first discovered Fine Balance, which I guess was pretty relatively early on, we're always like, oh, these guys are going to be the next ones that's going to kind of pop off in that sort of hype haze kind of world. And I feel like they have to a degree, but you're right, Mark. It kind of still feels like a if you know, you know type of thing with these guys, which is ridiculous.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I have always, ever since I tried my first Fine Balance, I think it was Oats and Cream probably.
What a banger.
I love the brewery. Andrew is such a great guy.
Yeah, he is.
Truly.
He's a guy who also half the time delivers his own beer and, goes out of his way to, make things easy for you. And he's always one of those guys who drops off, one of their special bottles just so we can actually drink one without paying for it, which is always much appreciated.
What a champion.
Oh, yeah.
And weirdly, their original brewer, Eric, his mom lives in our neighborhood in Hamilton. Oh. So Yeah, like so we had this weird connection there too. So I'd always see him when he was visiting his mom. So we always kind of had this extra bit of
Connection.
Yeah, so it was always nice to support him, and it was always so good that it was easy to support. So
Yeah,
I've always loved him. And I mean, just like look at the beer. The beer is it's
oh yeah, like this is some
gorgeous.
thick haze right here.
Yeah.
Shall we cheers, gentlemen? Get that up here.
Cheers.
Cheers, Wes.
Cheers.
Such an interesting nose.
Oh my god, the nose is incredible on this.
So this is the sorry, we didn't even say this is called Oats and Honey, which is an IPA, obviously with honey. But does it have honey? I bet with a touch of honey.
Yeah.
Okay, instead of
Yes.
lactose, and it's got HBC 1019. Why is this familiar? I know Badlands use it in a beer recently, but this is some sort of. I thought it was like isn't it a new hop product or something that doesn't have a name yet?
Yeah, 1019 is it's like an experimental sort of like yet to be named hop.
Okay,
So
I thought it was
been around
a
for a while though. Like I've had
Okay.
beers with 1019 in it, like probably over a year ago that were made in Ontario. So I think
Okay.
it's just it's got a bit of a longer experimental trial period than maybe hops used
than
to.
others.
But
I think
it's
I think what you're
past.
Gotcha.
yeah I think what you're thinking is the Badlands is a forward one. So the forward one is a 1019, but it's their specific product. So it's like I think it's like a liquid product or something. But yeah,
The flowable, right? And I thought I thought HBA that this 1019 one, like I'm familiar with the hops that are experimental and shit because there's the 586 and all that stuff. But I had in my head, maybe someone told me and I misinterpreted, but I thought this specific one is this like T90 pellets, or is
I think
this?
so? Yeah, I think it's
Yeah?
pellets. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. So, do you guys know much about the hop? I mean, this is saying here, it's like this is their oats and cream IPA at 6.5, but with honey instead of lactose. So they're saying creamy smooth citrus, coconut, pineapple, and honeydew melon. I'm definitely getting the coconut. It's almost like it's got Sabro in it or something. It's
Mhm.
crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I get from 1019. Is like it's like a little baby Sabro kind of. It's I get big coconut from it, so I really like Sabro and sort of coconutty IPAs and stuff. So I was excited to try this one, and then the play on the oats and cream is great because I love that that's sort of the flagship, like lactose. I think that's just like a great move. So just a little twist on that was exciting for me to want to share it.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, great choice.
And the honey is honey's all the hype right now too. So
thanks
It
to
is.
is it Fetch?
Leketch have definitely popularized that, and and Fine Balance are one of the ones that they collabed with a couple of times last year, and they seem to take a bit of inspiration from that. I think.
Yeah,
fully. Leketch is making like just amazing IPAs. Like,
oh yeah,
I can't get my hands on them as often as I would like to, but they're always amazing.
Oh, it's spectacular.
Yeah, some of the best in Quebec.
I wanted to say one more thing about how Andrew often delivers the stuff themselves, and that's not even just with licensees. Like they even will do, Andrew will even do, we'll even do order drops, for anyone who's ordering it too. It's and they Fine Balance are one of the ones that I will actually regularly order direct from, and. It's a case of 50% of the time it'll be Andrew or Jamie showing up at my door with the beer order, which is pretty sweet.
Yeah, it's crazy. It just speaks to the kind of people they are, and just how connected they are. Right? Yeah,
very much so. So on that, and it's actually cool. This was like still part of the last thing we were talking about curation. So now we've figured out how it all works. What goes into the decision for the actual? I mean, we can specifically. I mean, I guess you could also refer to the other products like the wine and stuff on your side, Chris. But still, what goes into the thinking behind, where? Say you're starting this store, COVID happens. You're like, hey guys, if you got a cafe, you can make a fridge and whatever. So you got an empty fridge. Where do you start? How does that thinking work?
Good question.
Yeah,
Chris. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like when you started, what did you do? Did you? My guess is that you just start with your faves. The beer that you want to get, you're like, fuck, it'd be sick to get some Fine Balance. It'd be sick to get some Third Moon. It'd be sick to get Badlands. Like, is that really how it works?
Yeah. I pretty much wrote down like what are the. I started very small at the time. The first fridge I started with was much smaller than the fridges I have now. But I was like, I want 6 IPAs. I want 6 like lagers, pilsners. I want a few stouts, sours, that kind of thing. But I had some like breweries I had to have kind of thing. Like I remember when I was first starting, I was like, we have to have Half Hours on Earth because I was obsessed with that brewery.
Goats.
I was just like, we had to have that in the fridge. So that was definitely one. Actually, Badlands was one, but I actually was almost, not that I almost didn't start a bottle shop, but I almost delayed it because I remember I emailed Troy. I'd never really met him other than, like, I hadn't met him. Had bought his beer from different stores, and I'd went to the brewery once. But I remember I emailed him, and he's like, we don't have any space for another licensee. And I was like literally almost going to delay our opening because of that, because I wanted it. But then luckily he emailed me like a week before we were open, so then I drove up there real quick to grab it. But like that was one of the ones I had to have in. And then like Third Moon as well. I remember emailing Chris for the first time, and he's just like, yeah, just stop by anytime and pick it up. So like there was a few that I had to have. I would say there was probably like a handful that I knew I had to have in the fridge to make it like, I don't know. I always just wanted to have like, I don't know if Mark had the same thing, but I always wanted to have like, I always wanted to feel like we were having the best of the best. Like I don't know why I always have to do that when I'm doing something, but
of course.
So I was always like, we need these. So it was always kind of like like I had to have it. So I went out, whatever I had to do to get those. That's what same with Wood. I remember when Wood Brothers too, it was so impossible to get their beer at first. And I email them every week, pretty much begging them to send me beer. Then they just send me a random case once in a while. So,
I definitely sent them some emails too. But for me, it was because I had been really into craft beer for a long time. I was like, when I started, I was like, I'm just going to put my favorite beers in the fridge. And so it was stuff like, Burdock. I love their like grape ales and lagers, and Shortfinger and Kitchener. I know they're like close, and I don't carry too much like hyper local stuff, but I think that Rob makes awesome beer, and Lando's like one of the greatest beers in Ontario.
Oh, it is. It is.
And then, that was Third Moon opened, I think, like about just around a month before I opened my shop. So we sort of, if you look at the timeline now, we basically opened around the same time. And pretty soon after, I'd say like I had been open for a week or something, and I was like, I'm going to go check this brewery out. And after going that first time, that was a brewery where I went every single week and bought every single beer they've released. Like we've had every beer they've released in our shop since they've been a month old. Wow. Badlands the same. We used to be driving out there every single week. We were one of the first places to actually like have their beer, not even as Sidewalk, but so Sidewalk is inside Princess Cafe, which is the business I've had here for 15 years. Okay. And so Sidewalk was just like a separate name, fun branding for the bottle shop side of the business that is like inside Princess Cafe. So it's all under the same umbrella. But I would have Badlands stuff before the pandemic too. And I forget where I had tried it, but I was like, this is the best IPA. So, I got them in as soon as I can. I remember they were in the beer store for a little while too.
That's right. A handful of stores. What a weird time.
Really? Oh, I guess because everyone was just looking for new avenues to sell anything, really, right?
Yes, yeah, this is like early.
Yeah, like very, very early on. And Troy talked about this the first time we had him on. Back, and this was of course back when he was doing bottles too. It was like maybe 8 or 10 stores like between like Oakville, Waterloo, and a couple in Caledon or whatnot, just because that was a model where you could pick individual stores to put it in, and it just made sense for him at the time, and this with the size of batches that they were making. But like so weird to think though, Badlands in the beer store.
It makes no sense now looking at it.
I
Very
literally
cool.
got a Badlands from I think it was the Oakville store beside the Whole Foods there, because they actually
Yeah.
had the best beer selection
Oh, I know where that. Yeah,
around, actually, for a
Okay.
while there. Yeah.
I know exactly.
Before
Next to the
Bottle
Beer
Shop stopped
Town. Is that the one?
Yeah,
with-
yeah. Same one in there. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, I've been there a few times. Okay, that's hilarious. Okay, so like, how did you guys round out the fridges? Because obviously, with all the breweries, essentially, you talked about they make Crispies, but they're more well known for the haze. So, I guess it's like a 2-part question. One, how did you round out the offerings, I guess, to add in some Crispies and some stouts and sours and da. And then 2, what did customers want? Like, did you see any patterns in people coming in? Like, were they just like, I want beer. Where's the PBR? Oh, you don't have any? Well, and do they like lean in and they're cool to go with local, or were they coming in like, give me that fucking haze, bro? Like, are they like knowledgeable beer nerds type shit?
Yeah, well, when we opened and we were just the sliding window right onto the street, it would be like a lineup of people, and you'd stick your head in the window, and I'd have the fridge behind me. And so I was
That's hilarious.
literally having conversations with every single customer that was buying beer. So I felt like early on, for the first like year and a half, close to 2 years, I was literally talking to every customer about their beer selection or the breweries, and it was like a very much like a one-on-one kind of experience, shopping experience. So I would find that a lot of people would gravitate towards the beers that I was most excited about, whatever it happened to be that week. I don't have the luxury to do that anymore. I'm not in here during our open hours as often as I used to be. So I write little like notes for each beer and I pin them up. So you kind of get a little bit of that experience when you're looking in our fridges. But I sort of, early days, it was a lot of like recommendations. And then people sort of from there would find, oh yeah, Half Hours on Earth. That place makes the craziest beers. And those people would always come in and get Half Hours on Earth. And then, same would go for Badlands, Third Moon. It's like people would eventually find what it was they liked. And then just like all of us are, it's like once you get to trust a brewery for being consistent and making cool, fun beers, it's like those are the ones you're going to go to, So.
Yeah, that makes sense. What about your side, Chris?
Yeah, when we opened, I had this idea that I was curating the IPA section very strongly, because that's, again, I was an IPA guy. That's what I wanted. And I had this idea where I thought we were going to bring in a small selection of I thought of lager and Pilsner drinkers as more like they wanted the same thing all the time, like a comfort, not a comfort thing, but they enjoyed the same lager or Pilsner over and over. So I had this idea where we were gonna, I think it was what's the Muddy York play
Gaslight?
on? No, the play on Old Milwaukee. What is it? Is it Old?
Oh, Old Muddy.
Is it Old Muddy? Yeah, I remember I ordered 6 cases of that when we first opened. Old Muddy is gonna be, people are gonna love this, and they're gonna. I was that, Blood Light, a few other just stuff that I thought people were just gonna, and I quickly realized that's not people just like IPA drinkers. The people who were drawn to our store wanted to try a vast selection of Pilsners, lagers, that kind of stuff. So, yeah, I wouldn't say I struggled, but I definitely floundered a bit, just trying a bunch of different Pilsners and lagers in the fridge throughout, and then kind of realized what people were into, or at least think I know what people are into. But the other thing that really helped is I started working more with Fairweather. So I was kind of against having any Hamilton breweries in my fridge because it just didn't really make sense. But Fairweather is actually one of the ones who offer really good licensee prices. So we're actually able to offer beers at pretty comparable prices that they do. So so we started filling our fridge with a bunch of Fairweather as well. So which gives us a bit of a local sort of vibe to it as well. But yeah,
does the Fairweather? Sorry to interrupt, Chris. Does the Fairweather move reasonably well?
Yeah, it does. It's crazy, and sometimes apparently we sell it cheaper than they do at Fairlift. So
Oh wow.
that probably helps. Like, I don't know what we're doing. As soon as someone tells me that, I'm like, okay, so we fucked up.
Yeah, like Ram, don't kill me.
But yeah, no, it moves really well. But yeah, and then like, it's really just been kind of trial and error. Yeah, but I think about like, yeah, I don't know. I don't know how, like, I don't know your experience with pilsners and lagers and stuff, Mark, but I also feel like sometimes they wouldn't move. Like, I went through a period where I stopped ordering short cans altogether because no one would buy a short can at our store. Maybe not altogether. I'd still bring in some Son and Hill, but like, I didn't have Godspeed in the fridge for a really long time because like no one bought it, which was insane to me. But like,
I was like, yo, where's the Godspeed? And you were like, yeah, no one's buying this shit. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I would like go out of my way to go to Godspeed, and then no one would buy it. So like, I went through this period where I was only buying tall cans of pilsners and lagers because it seemed like that's what people wanted. And again, I had more limited fridge space at the time, so I couldn't kind of play with it. I had to just kind of pick stuff that was actually moving. But yeah, it was a lot of trial and error for that kind of stuff.
I guess that's
I love drinking. I love drinking lagers, so it's probably the style of beer that I like drink most of by volume. And I think there's like a good amount of breweries that make really good lager in Ontario. So I basically like have a whole fridge that's dedicated to lagers. I usually have like at least a dozen different kinds. I know like that's probably more than a lot of places when it comes to like having different lagers, but I always want to have them in my fridge at home. So they don't move as fast as the IPAs do, but I think having a diverse selection of lager like has gone pretty well. And I'm not as concerned about them obviously like moving as fast as IPAs because they can hang out a little bit longer and I don't feel like they're degrading.
Yeah, that's actually one of the first things it actually made me appreciate lagers quicker because of that, like just from a business perspective, because I was like, oh, we can actually sit on these for a month and a half, and like it's longer. Not going to degrade. You know what I mean? Whereas, you know, especially with certain people who are buying like IPAs, it's like if it's 2 weeks old or more, it's, you know, dead to them. Which
that's me.
Isn't even.
That's Craig. Craig.
I mean, in some cases, yeah, but I mean, I feel like it's sort of an outdated view of IPAs.
I think it depends on the brewery.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
And like some brewery, yeah, it is a little bit. I think it's like at this point, and I know I'm being a princess for sure, and I'm very aware of that. It's more like, I think it's like a palate preference thing as far as like, say like Troy has said, you know, he thinks his beers are best consumed if they are under a month. This beer, the first thing, this is about 6 days over a month for this one. My first thing was like, oh no, when I saw the date just now. That was my first gut reaction. But this is great because I know Andrew and the team make some fantastic beers, right? So it's not like that 1 month cutoff. It's just like, some people, like Bebo said on the pod, which also kind of changed my framing a bit, was like, if I saw Bone Tree at 2 months, I wouldn't even blink. And I'm like, I think that's dope because he is confident in his product because he knows what goes into it. So I think each producer has their own thing. There are some that drop off pretty quickly, and some would be like, hey, it'd be like Greg at Counterpart was like, yeah, you should be able to, he believes you should be able to drink it right out of the can. Day one, canning day, you don't have to sit on it because it's too hot, because some breweries definitely have that, which is not I don't have a problem with that either. I actually prefer that because that means if they're hot, that means it's probably going to last 6 weeks, 6 to 8 weeks, and it'll be fine in my, to my palate. So it's an interesting thing, but I don't know what you do, Mark, with this, but what you do, Chris, is you do like a discount fridge of the ones that are probably. What's your criteria for the discount fridge? How does that work? I always meant to ask.
Yeah, I mean, there's no real like hard and fast rule for it, but yeah, I mean, a month is kind of like my thing where I start to be like, okay, we got to move these. Depending on the brewery. Double IPAs, obviously, I actually don't worry about too much. I mean. That's more of like the 2 month, 3 month mark even.
Sure.
I mean, they don't usually sit around that long, but I don't usually get too. But yeah, IPAs I'm usually hitting around month. A lot of the discount fridge is like sometimes you'll see a Badlands that's like a month old. It's because I have one left of it or two left, and I need to get another. It's more of the organization of the fridge more so than dates. It's more like I need room for something else.
That's how it goes for me as well. It's I call it the lonely cans section. Basically, it's the last can of a certain beer, and it doesn't matter what it is. Like it could be like a beautiful big imperial stout, and I'll put it in there, or it could be a 4-week-old IPA. You know, it doesn't matter if it's the last one; it goes there. Typically, I don't have beers that like stay around for too long. So a lot of the time, it's like I'd say at most of the time, I'm ordering a case of a certain beer, and then a lot of time, you know, depending on the brewery you're working with, you can say, "Can I just get 12 cans of this one?" And so by like just sort of knowing the rate at which we go through things and which breweries are willing to like adjust quantities that they sell to us, like I sort of set us up in a way to not be sitting on specifically hoppy beers for a very long time at all. So yeah, but if it gets to around that month point, we're right next door to a music shop. I'll hook those guys up with beers. If there's stuff that like I don't feel good selling, we'll find a use for it. It'll go to staff, friends. I'll have like get-togethers where I just fill a cooler with random beers, and if you come over, you don't get to pick what you have. You just put your hand in the cooler and drink whatever you get. So ways of kind of using up stuff that isn't selling.
That's kind of genius. I love that. I know you take him to golf, Chris.
Yeah. So I golf once a week, and I bring my whole foursome gets hooked up with the best beer you can have. I've got a cart bag that fits like 16 beers in the bottom. No one's the wiser. And
yeah, you're a good person to golf with then.
yeah.
I love that. Very creative ways to make that work, boys. I love it.
Yeah. I actually think that's another reason why I've kind of not figured out, but where I've come to the thing where I think that like IPA dates are important, because I've drank a lot of old IPAs because of this. So, right. And like, yeah, some of them don't hit, some of them suck, but some of them are like really good still. So I think it's
without saying any names specifically, like I've personally noticed there's some breweries that drop off a lot faster than other ones.
There are definitely.
It all comes down to, the canning processes, and I think that's a big factor. But there's certain breweries where I'll see an IPA that's 2 months old, and I'll be happy to drink it. And then another brewery, if it's like 6 weeks old, I'm like, I'm not going to touch that. So
I'm right there with you, dude.
Yeah.
It's fascinating. So to sort of segue off that into the pricing convo that we sort of touched on earlier about how it works. So you don't have to get like very specific, but just more like for the high level. I think we kind of, like, you guys are like, grazed on it earlier, as far as like you buy direct from the breweries. Some give you some wholesale price or licensee specific rate. Some don't, and it's basically the equivalent of going into an LCBO. Just so people know, if they go to a independent bottle shop, sometimes the criticism might be that the price is too high. Typically, those people don't buy craft beer, who would be saying that. I don't know about you guys, but almost any beer that I want, if I want it, I'm going to get it. I don't even look at the price. If it wasn't for me getting Nate stuff and we've got a little note where we just split the money, I wouldn't even look at the price. I have no idea what they are. Like, it doesn't matter to me, because I want that Third Moon beer. I want that Badlands beer. And it doesn't matter what it costs. And I know I'm supporting my store, and I know I'm supporting the brewery by doing that too. So I'd be curious the way you guys approach price, or just like, maybe just at large, how does pricing work with this in more detail, and sort of, just so people who don't know anything about it can maybe get a bit more context. Either or.
Yeah, I mean, I can say something for. So most of the time we are paying like close to retail. Some breweries definitely have a licensee price that's pretty
like Fairweather that you mentioned.
Yeah, that's great. Other ones I understand. It's like they're already selling it at a price that's like kind of rock bottom for them to be making money on. So I'm not expecting them to hit me up with an even bigger discount. But yeah, like that said, it's like we're sort of, I mean, I hate to think of myself as a middleman, but like we're buying product and then we have to mark it up. So, I mean, that's just kind of how it happens, right? Like we don't exist if we don't have a markup. So, we have to mark it up. I mean, I think both of us we mark it up to points where it makes sense for us, but also represents like a very, still approachable price for our customers. Like I definitely keep that in mind. Like whenever I'm pricing something, I'm always like, would I buy this for this price? And I think that always kind of dictates a lot of how we're pricing. Like in the sense, like, there's like definitely a minimum we need to make to actually make it make sense, especially when I'm driving to get beers or like, and not only that, like delivery prices are also always going up, it seems. So like there's also extra costs just on top of the actual price of the cans. So you definitely have to price it to make sense. But yeah, it's just like there has to be a markup on it. And
that's such a good point. I always think about you driving there because I know that you do it, but I never thought about delivery for you guys. Like if a brewery's shipping it out, there's not like it's going to be free because someone's got to pay for it and they're not going to eat it.
Yeah.
So that's going to be factored into that on
someone's paying Canpar or small batch or whatever to get that to you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like
breweries
if you look,
pass that on, but some breweries, you'll pay like full delivery fees. Every brewery kind of has different fees for that. So whatever it costs for them to get it to us, I'll sort of break that down by what did that cost per can. And then that's just baked into the cost of it. And then I'll mark it up from there. But you do get some favorable deals from some places when it comes to shipping, be it you're ordering additional cases. So they have a 3-case minimum, and then maybe you decide to get 3 different beers from that brewery for this order and wait until you can order 3 cases again or something. There's always ways to play with it. There's also a lot of times where I'm like, I don't care about the shipping costs, just send it, sort of how you guys are saying you feel about it. But, all those little things kind of get baked into it. And I agree with Chris trying to keep the prices to be like, what would I pay for it? There's not many other spots in Waterloo that do what we do, but the places that do, I haven't in a while because I'm sort of like into my pricing structure. It's all fairly plug and play at this point. But early on, I was checking what other places were selling beers for and like just trying to make sure that I was on the under, you know what I mean? Like I didn't want to be charging more for a beer than anyone else was charging for it.
Yeah.
And I think like the idea behind a bottle shop is that prices should be reasonable. Like if you go to a bar and get a pint of Badlands or a can of Badlands, it could be like $12 to $14, So the restaurant and bar pricing is typically like 300% margin, or they'll mark it up by like 300% a lot of places. And we're just like nowhere even near that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So to me, the idea is like a bottle shop should be reasonably priced and should make sense based on the volume of beer that they can sell to make it a sustainable thing.
Yeah, it's funny.
You guys? Oh, sorry, Chris, go ahead.
I was just going to say it's funny that you went and checked all the prices because I did the same thing, and somehow we're both still standing. So there's probably something to say about not pricing it too high, right? Like,
there's got to be something to be said for that. Do you guys often get questions from customers on price, or or any pushback on saying like, why is this so expensive? Like I know you must get that sometimes, but like, does it happen frequently?
I'd say people ask about the prices a lot, or they won't ask about it. They won't shop here. It's like I'll have conversations with people outside other places. We're talking about beer, and they will actively say like, I won't go to a bottle shop because it's too expensive. And I get it. You don't want to pay an extra $2, for a can of beer. So people think beer should be cheap for some reason. And I don't know. So I know that there's people who like actively dislike the bottle shop model completely and won't support it because they think that it's like we're gouging people or trying to.
They think it's a grift.
Yeah, but it's like, obviously for Chris and I both, it's like a passion project that we're just trying to make sustainable, so neither of us is getting rich. The reason our bottle shops exist is because we have other aspects of our business that have existed forever and continue to exist, and that's how we can survive. It's not like the bottle shop side of our businesses is making us rich or anything like that. So
Do you?
The thing there. Chris, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say, like sometimes we'll get people like, what, $7 or $8 for a can of beer, and I'm just like, well, like
there's a reason for that.
There is a reason for that. Like it's like we're only carrying the best beers in the province. So I mean, like, and I'm not sure like how you feel, Mark, but like I always like it's an easy comparison for me because I'm like, well, we also sell bags of coffee for $26, right? That's not every bag of coffee we sell is $26, but like those are really good coffees that have like it's if you want the best product, there's a tier, right? And I mean, we're not there to sell Miller High Life or what, and there's nothing wrong with Miller High Life. I'll drink a Miller High Life, but I just mean like that's not why we exist. We're existing to expose you to like the top end of craft of beer. Like the reason you come to us is to experience really great beer, not mediocre beer for cheap. And the other thing, like you were saying too, Mark, is like, you look at bar pricing. Like sometimes I'll go to a bar and I'm not even saying that, but like I'll pay $7 for a High Life. I'm like, you know what I mean? Like you could buy like the best beer in my fridge almost for that price. So so like it's not really that expensive. Like you could save money by coming here and not going to a bar. Not that you shouldn't go to bars. Bars are great places. I have a bar, but I just mean like I don't think they're grossly overpriced, and I would never sell something that was grossly overpriced, to be honest. And that's what I tell people. I'm like, I would never rip you off. This is just the price of it. Like that's, and if there's any big takeaway, it's that we live in a very archaic system for alcohol sales, right? I mean, like the breweries can't sell it to us cheaper because they're paying huge taxes on the thing based on how much beer they're making. So they don't really have an option to give it to us cheaper because they're paying that tax just based on the volumes that they're producing. So there is no real like the guys who do get like, I'll just like Third Moon gives me a discount and like that's coming out of their pocket because they're nice people and they like me and we not like me, but we have a relationship. I
believe they like you.
You know what I mean? Like that, like it's coming out of their pocket, but like, and I don't begrudge people for not doing it because I understand the same thing. It's coming out of your pocket. So, I mean, like, it's nothing like we can't control the price essentially. And I think both of us try and keep it as low as possible.
I think if you go into I'd be sorry, Nate.
Sorry, if you don't mind. That the thing that I would be, we'll fight about it off air. He's totally pissed at me.
I'm furious. I'm going on mute.
The thing that I'd be curious about, like hearing the thing like you were saying, Mark, with the people who like, no, I don't shop at bottle shops. Bottle shops are too expensive. And and I don't know if you've ever heard kind of the next step of that conversation, because what I'd be really curious about from someone who says that is I'd be like, okay, so where do you buy your beer then? Because
I think those people like to support breweries directly. At least that's how I feel. It's like they still like beer enough that they'll go to the source, and that's great. I want people to support the breweries as much as possible too. Yeah. So, it's just they're willing to take on the inconvenience maybe of driving all over the place to save a few bucks. So.
Yep. I mean, if that's the answer, more power to them. I'm
spending
not
the gas though.
Yeah, I'm not mad at that. Like that's a that's a decision that no, sorry. I mean, like I do wish they were supporting you guys as well, but but if that's their alternative, I would rather they be spending time and gas to go to breweries than just being like, nah, I'll just get whatever shit I can get at the LCBO. That is preferable to that. I hope that's what they're doing instead. I wish they would support you guys as well. But if that's if that's the line they draw, I'm less mad at that, I suppose.
Yeah, I feel like these are conversations that I have with people like at breweries when I'm at breweries. So I feel like that's why I'm saying they go directly to the brewery. Of course, the people there's another group of people who will complain about the pricing and then go to the LCBO or whatever. But
yeah, of course.
Yeah, I find I have a lot of conversations in different breweries and stuff with people. So that's sort of where that's coming from for me.
Yeah,
Sorry,
I mean,
my dog's eating shit.
I hope people go to breweries. I mean, if someone's not buying stuff from us and it's from a brewery, that's amazing. I mean,
I agree.
But I mean, yeah, I just feel like we're offering. I mean, obviously we should feel it, but like I feel like I'm running a business that I would love. Like, it's kind of, I don't know if you ever get this feeling. Sometimes I get this feeling where like my wife and I, my wife's also a big part of our business, but we created this coffee shop and a bar and a bottle shop that like I would love to go to. Like, I want to live in, like, I want to be a regular at this place. But it's weird because obviously I own it, so I don't get to enjoy it the same way as just like being a customer. Yeah, like sometimes I just don't understand. Like, I would love to be, having access to this. And I did love, like, before I ever opened a bottle shop, I loved when I went to your shop, Mark, and I found all these beers I never had, or I went to Bruck's house or something, and I found, I got to taste a beer that changed my, perception of what a beer could be or whatever, right? So, yeah, I don't know. Sometimes I just don't understand what people are over a couple bucks, but.
Yeah, I feel like I we do what we love to do, right? That's the beauty of us, like, being our own bosses and having our own business. But I feel exactly the same. Like, I believe that every town or city should have a bottle shop. And wherever I'm living, if it weren't mine here, like, I would find what that place is and I would go there all the time.
Totally, yeah. Yeah, I mean, every time I go to an American city, I always try and find what their best bottle shop is, and I go there to, like, see what they have and buy some stuff. And
same.
I mean,
yeah, that's such an interesting thing because, like, I guess that's the downside is you don't get to experience being that because I am a regular. You are my local. I can go there. It's 10 minutes from my house. I can get fire coffee and get everything I need and don't have to worry. And it's interesting, all of this about, like, people. I think this is kind of why we wanted to have you guys on. I feel like I want to, like, clear up those misconceptions. Probably those people who are complaining about prices won't listen to a craft beer podcast anyway. But it's like, if you're going to drive, probably not. If you're going to drive to a brewery, you're going to spend about the same amount, if not more, in gas than you would by paying the extra at a bottle shop. Once again, like we all said, absolutely fucking support the breweries, no problem. If you're going to order online from a brewery and you got the Force 4-packs, which I understand, if I was a brewery, I would do Force 4-packs. I totally get it. As a customer, I don't particularly want more than maybe 2 of anything. That's all.
Yeah.
Whenever I go to the States on Force, it drives me nuts. And then one or two of them always fucking die. Then I'm like, give them to my brother because he doesn't care as much. But it's like, you're going to spend it on the shipping then. Or you're going to have to do 4 of them. So at the end of the day, you're going to end up spending that money anyway. So it's like, what is it worth to you to keep a business like Sidewalk or Durand alive in your community? And as I think you just said, Chris, every city, one of you guys said, every city needs one of you guys. You guys, and you know what's funny? Like, there's not as many as there should be. Like, you guys mentioned a few of them, other ones tonight, but there's you two. I mean, Evan just closed, like, in Barrie, but, like, there's only a few others. There isn't, like, there should be one everywhere in and multiple in Toronto. It's I mean, I guess you got Dominion, and in Ottawa, of course, the Dominion City and Friends, which is fantastic as well. But it's like, yeah, people not understanding what that really means. What it means to, like, gonna get that call, Mark. You never know, could be business. Yeah, just understanding that pricing thing. I just, like, yeah, that always, like, we started talking about it on this before we started this series with Jeff from Town, with Shahan from Lost Craft, because they knew the price of all the competitors at the LCBO, and I'd never looked because I just don't look at price because I don't care. It's not that much. It's like if I fucking want it, I want it. It's my luxury in life. If I want to pay $5-6 for a large latte with oat milk, then I'm going to. That's what makes me happy, so I'm going to fucking do it. I'm not buying anything crazy, so that's the little small things in life that make everything kind of pretty cool, because I can have a great coffee, I can drink great beer, not worry too much. But yeah, people sort of getting tripped up over price, probably, you know, maybe craft beer isn't for you, or maybe there's certain of the larger craft breweries. I don't want to call anybody out because I don't mean it in a bad way, but, you know, we all the LCBO craft beer brands that are big in that. There's some fantastic stuff that you can get for under $4 if that's really what you need. So it's, you know, this is not that though, because you, once again, if you want the people who will complain, go to Tim Hortons if you don't want that. And I've mentioned Starbucks before, but they're still expensive. So they're just like people who don't understand quality. Sorry, Starbucks people, but you know, it's fucking horrendous. Tim Hortons is even worse. But if you want a $2 coffee, that's where you're going to go for it. That's where you go.
I don't think it's $2 though.
No, it's not. You're right.
Not? Really? Really?
It's more like $4. Yeah.
No.
I mean, I haven't been in a while, but that's just, I don't know. But yeah, it's
I used to go when I first moved here because I liked before I understood craft beer and good coffee, I just liked Canadian stuff. It was fun. And he was like, you could get a double in that extra large thing for like $1.99 or something.
Yeah.
This is 2010, 2011.
Yeah. No, I think they raise their prices every quarter now. It's kind of crazy. But
no, what I don't. Obviously, I'm not going to go there. But what is that? What do we?
I don't actually know.
Like,
the
seriously,
I shouldn't say this. But yeah, I think it's creeping.
No,
I
think you're not wrong. I don't go there. I find Tim Hortons to be absolutely unpalatable. But it's the kind of thing of like when I'm on a road trip, that's like that's when my standards drop. And if I'm in and if I'm in a city that doesn't have a third wave shop, or if I just don't have time, and when you're traveling with a toddler, you don't have time to pick these places out. You kind of just need to get the coffee where you can, and that's when I'll go to Tim Hortons or McDonald's for coffee. And I think that Tim Hortons is now around like $2.25, $2.50 for a medium or something like that. Yeah. Wow. I think that's what it is now. Yeah.
So like you're paying more for literally dirt water. Like that is, dude.
Dirt water's a nice way to put it.
Yeah, I'm being
because there's some we're talking beer, so I won't get into the coffee side.
I don't mind. There's
some gross stuff that happens to commodity coffee, so you don't want to.
Oh, I believe that.
I wouldn't even want to know. Yeah, it's kind of crazy. Okay, so I feel like you guys have given us a really strong understanding of pricing. So on that, then the other side of what you guys are doing, and from pricing, would be the impact of, the new thing that was added in for gas station and convenience stores, and then obviously groceries been around, but now it's been expanded. That has happened in the last 6 months, maybe less. And you guys less. And you guys have been able to operate in the last 4 years and almost 5 years, whatever it was. How has the impact of that affected you guys? Like, is there any sort of run on, or does it come back to the pricing conversation before? Every gas station I've been in, I have barely seen any craft beer, only ones with and once again, I know Collective have a strong convenience strategy. I think that's awesome. I think Great Lakes might as well. I think that's awesome.
Muskoka probably. I've seen them in Costco.
Okay, perfect. Exactly. So that is like a strategy for almost those larger kind of breweries. And I think that is, once again, if I owned that business, that's what I would do. Because we don't see that crossover, once again, I'm not, that there's like an Esso down the street from Badlands. I don't believe I would ever see their beer in that gas station. So therefore my working theory would be they don't have a large impact on you guys because it's a different consumer base. It's a different product. I've seen the box, fucking packs, like the American style, 12 packs, 24 packs of different stuff. What's the deal? What's the impact? General thoughts for you guys?
Yeah, that gas station by Badlands there is like a LCBO outlet type of place. So they've got all bottles of liquor, and it's a crazy convenience store.
Yeah, the liquor trip. I've
been there many times.
Yeah,
as I'm sure you have, Chris.
Yeah.
Usually to get gas, not to get beer.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, I think it's the same type of products that you'll see at grocery and that you'll see at convenience. So it's not necessarily something that I think would impact us. I do think it's great for the breweries who are able to utilize it as an additional, way to get their beer in people's hands. Like you said, Great Lakes and Collective Arts. I think that's great for them, but I haven't noticed any sort of impact on us here. But
yeah, I feel like if anything, it's been positive impact. To be honest with you, like for two reasons. One, every convenience store or gas station I've went to, like the prices are high. Like a Corona is pretty expensive because they're trying to make money. Like, I mean, convenience stores in general jack up the price on everything. So, I mean, they're not getting a discount on their Coronas or whatever. So they have to mark it up. So you're seeing that like your usual whatever $2 can and they're selling for $4. So I think if anything, that kind of shows you that, prices are high.
That's big on that side.
It kind of brings our prices into a little bit better perspective. And I also think it's just training people who wouldn't come to our shops. It's now training people to like actually
go somewhere else,
understand that you can buy your beer in different places. And I think that opens the market up to us a little bit in the sense that like people who would never have thought of getting it anywhere else, now if they see a sign for one of our shops when they're on the way to the gas station to grab their beer, maybe they pull over and grab it at our shop instead. So I think it's been mostly like it definitely hasn't hurt our sales for sure. I mean, if a gas station is carrying a beer, I'm definitely not carrying it. I don't think Mark would be, so.
I like that you put those positive spins on that because that stuff honestly never crossed my mind. I don't know if you're just better at business than me, but I never thought about how it would positively impact people's purchasing decisions or anything like that. So that's a unique insight. I appreciate that.
That's what these pods are for, Uncle dope. Mark. Yeah, I think that's a great, like it's a good thought because it's about training people, right? And if people, and that's the other thing with gas stations, when you're giving the example of the Corona, like Corona is a commodity beer, like you mentioned, commodity coffee. Arguably, I don't have a beef with Corona either. I always enjoyed it. But if you're going to go to a gas station and buy a can of Red Bull, it's going to be so much more than it is if you go to the supermarket, for example. So people are trained to know if you go to the gas station or a convenience store, you know that you are being a lazy bitch and you could just go somewhere else, but you didn't get your shit on time. So you're going to pay the price for that. And everyone's used to that. It's been like that forever. So it's almost like showing them that, hey, if you don't, like, beer can cost a bit more. It doesn't make sense for something like whatever, the mass marketed beers, anything that's sort of like a global international beer or whatever. But yeah, it does train people that you can get beer everywhere. Maybe if people travel, you go to somewhere like Quebec. The gas stations in Quebec, at least the one across the road from my old place, had hot garbage. I had zero craft. But then I had to go up the road to the craft beer store, like the specialty beer store. It was a very different place. And it was more of a thing that you just knew that you could get beer everywhere. The supermarket had a reasonable beer section, but they kept it all warm. And like you guys both have beautiful fridges where the thoughtful curation leads to proper treatment of the beer. That's the other thing that is so important. If I go into a store and they've got shit just sitting on the ground, and I understand because there's fridges aren't cheap and da-da-da, but I don't know, man. Like it's a fragile product, and it's
a turnoff. That's a turnoff for sure.
Yeah, it happens a bit more in Quebec, I think, than here, though.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's
it doesn't not happen here.
Yeah.
Okay. We won't say names, but okay.
Yeah, I think it's just like it's the cost of doing business. You have to keep beer cold, And if someone's not doing that, I think it should be an immediate red flag to people.
I agree.
Yeah.
I like to treat it like milk. That's like how I think about it. It's how the folks that work for me, they know when beers show up, if they're delivered, they're like straight in the fridge. I even have there's guys that deliver our beer now that work for these delivery companies, and they'll just put it straight in the fridges. And we just have these fridges here. I don't have any additional stuff
cold
aside
storage
from the restaurant, but yeah, it's I think I could walk into a beer shop. You know, you say you go to them in all these different cities. It's the same thing, and it's like I could see an IPA that I really have been wanting to try, and if it's sitting out at room temp on the shelf, I won't buy it. There's no way, because you know it's not the beer that was brewed anymore. It's not what they intended for you to be drinking. It's just like it's not good anymore. So
nah.
No, not at all. There was one store I go to in Buffalo that Chris actually told me about. I don't want to say him because I actually really like him. But they've got like one of my favorite brews is Resident Culture in Charlotte. And the funniest part is you know those end cap shelves? So they got like a whole bunch of shelves and they're all separated by states. And it's right opposite the walk-in fridge door. And it's probably at this point now it's January. It's got to be close to a year old, and they got a whole bunch of different ones. Some of the like a crispy Baltic Porter, but it's called Lightning Drops. It's their like flagship IPA. Just warm as day, sitting there on the fucking shelf, looking at the fridge the whole time. The shit's a year fucking old.
I feel like American places don't care as much for some reason. Like I feel like almost half the bottle shops I go into in America are like, there's a bunch of warm stuff, IPAs included. I'm always like, this is so weird.
Yeah. I wonder if it's like do the breweries say to, I mean, maybe they don't need to, but has the breweries ever said to you guys, hey, you got to keep it cold? Like, do they ever need to tell you?
No, although like the only brewery that ever did that was Beer Lab. So I remember I contacted Beer Lab, which is now, what are they called now?
Supply and Demand.
I remember talking to Nick on the phone, and he like grilled me, like, how are you going to store my beer? Which I actually appreciated, but that's the only one that ever really I feel like most of the other ones assumed that we were going to do it properly. But I also remember there was a big controversy in Hamilton when there was like 4 bottle shops, that there was particular bottle shops that didn't keep Wood Brothers cold. So, yeah, I mean, most of them don't tell us, but I did appreciate that. I remember talking to Nick, and then I was like, well, I'm glad that you actually care about your product this much that you wouldn't sell it to me if I wasn't going to store it properly. But
I do like that, honestly. Yeah,
I appreciate that for sure.
That's a respect. What do you mean they changed their name? That's the first
This is news to both of us.
They opened like a pizza shop, and then they rebranded Beer Lab, essentially, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
like
it's all. They're gonna have a pizza place. They've sort of like made the space bigger. I don't know if it's opened or if it's like a few days away from opening or if it's a few months away from opening. I don't know how close they are. I'm excited about it, but yeah, it's a pizza brewery. They're gonna do like live music and fun events and stuff like that. So yeah, Supply and Demand is the new Beer Lab.
And they stopped sending out to licensees for a while. Like I'm hoping they'll start sending out again, but they stopped for a while. So we haven't had Beer Lab probably for the last 8 months or something like that.
I haven't seen them for a bit.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm good. I see that they did like in a post 29 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, so June 2024.
Wow. All right. Yeah, I'm seeing even like articles in like the London Free Press talking about it. No shit is out. Supply and Demand beer and pizza.
Yeah.
All right. Fuck, good for them, dude. But
I actually like the new branding looks better too, because I always thought the Beer Lab cans kind of weren't. We'll talk about that more, but any chance we could do a quick bathroom break?
Can we ever?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, let's take a bathroom break and we'll get back to the next one.
And then we can come back and get into the next beer. I agree with you, by the way. The new branding is more slick.
Yeah, looks good.
Yeah. All right. We'll be back. And we're back.
And we're back.
Fellas. All right. Beautiful. Let's get into this beer then. Next one that we've spoken about somewhat at length tonight. We have Badlands, the 2025 version of Fog, which is an IPA with Citra, Superdelic, and Nectaron. Wicked choice.
One of the prime breweries that that is the reason for mine and Craig's Durand deal a couple times a month.
Essentially, yes. I guess we kind of talked about him at length. I mean, it's kind of like obvious why you guys chose him at this point, I imagine. It would kind of be weird if we didn't. Essentially.
I think there's a handful of breweries that are just like you have to have, and I think Badlands is definitely one of them. And I think Troy too is very supportive of of
Oh, yeah.
bottle shops that I think he like really appreciates sort of what we do as well. So
Yeah.
I think it's an easy choice for sure.
Yeah, he's such a champion. Definitely, I like that a lot. Would you guys say that a lot of the breweries that you work with are champions of bottle shops, or do you need to like convince them to sell you shit?
I feel like a lot of places want their beer in bottle shops. I don't really see what would be considered like a downside to it, and so I haven't heard anything from breweries that are like, we don't want to have our beer in a bottle shop.
Right.
I
mean,
yeah,
it only makes sense to. It's another avenue. I mean, in like, what are you going to complain about? Different ways to sell your shit in 2025 when things aren't the simplest way. It kind of would seem redundant. As long as kind of like the Beer Lab convo that they were, it's being treated with respect, because maybe there's some people who open bottle shops because they think it's a money making exercise, as opposed to you both who are clearly. That was something else I was going to touch on before, but clearly you guys are like craft beer fans. You drink it, you love it. You wouldn't go out of the way that you both do to do all this stuff, from Hamilton to Caledon to Milton and back again, and every Thursday, if you didn't care about this stuff.
Yeah, I should say that like some places maybe in the early days like may have been a bit skeptical. Like let's say they are producing really small amounts of beer, or they have their customers who come out, or they're a new brewery and they don't know who we are or what we do. There can be a little bit of skepticism there. So I think that was sort of
particularly
in the early days. Like I remember having to put in work with some breweries to be able to carry the beer. Now that I think about it, Beer Lab being one of them.
Yeah.
Like they just didn't have beer, or didn't want to sell beer to Waterloo or send beer. They didn't have a way to get it here. They weren't making enough, whatever it was. That was one of the breweries that I was like emailing pretty regularly when we first opened. One of the breweries I really wanted to get in here that wasn't super accessible. So yeah, I guess, yeah.
That makes sense.
Willowbald, I had to wait almost 6 months to get Willowbald. So.
Oh wow!
Why was that?
They said they didn't have room for another licensee. And I was trying to tell them, like, I'm going to order, 3 cases a week off you, if you at least.
Right.
But I think that also was skepticism, and I also think, like, again, when we were opening, or when I was opening, particularly because it was sort of like probably 10 months after you did, Mark. There were a lot of bottle shops then, so they probably were sending out a lot more beer. But I don't necessarily know if they were actually like vetting who they were selling it to. And I actually remember 4th and 7, like I have nothing really bad to say about them, but I remember they used to just buy so much beer off people and then like, not store it properly, whatever. And like so many places were like, well, I'm sending this much to 4th and 7. I only have this much. Like literally people would say that to me. So it was kind of one of those, like in the early days, I felt like there were so many bottle shops that the amount they had, just like based on, batch sizes and stuff, they just couldn't send out as much.
Right.
But maybe you didn't experience that as much as I did, Mark, because you were definitely, first on the scene, or at least the first handful on the scene. So you kind of had those contacts a little earlier than I did.
I think when I started, it was us and 4th and 7. As far as I knew, we were the only 2 that had like really leaned into the whole concept just being a bottle shop. And I used to go make trips down there, and I agree. You would see, we were talking about beers not being stored properly earlier. Like you would see that in there, but you would also see some really cool stuff. Like I bought some like really nice bottles there that were like stuff I had a few years ago from a Toronto brewery, and I was like, oh, I loved that beer. I can't believe it's here,
Yeah.
Jeff was his name, and I would, we would talk occasionally in the early days. I had a lot of respect for what they were doing out there, and it was really cool to see. You'd walk in there, and it's just like wall-to-wall beers.
Yeah. I think they interestingly like approached it like a supermarket more so than like a bottle shop, which probably made sense in some ways, but also like didn't from like a, how much shelf life something actually had. But like I feel like they ordered like max on everything, which was kind of cool because you could find, like, I definitely went there and bought stuff from there before for sure. But I just remember like that was kind of the answer I would get sometimes, like, well, we're already selling so much to here, or I don't have a lot for you or whatever, which I would take anything. That was Wood Brothers particular. I remember they were the one who definitely always got Wood Brothers, and I used to message, I guess it would have been Mark back then, and I'd always be like, man, I need your beer. Like, just send me a couple cases of your beer.
Yeah, they were very selective with where they were sending beer for a while.
Yeah, it was definitely one of those.
When we first started with their beer, it was like we'd open at 11 and we'd have a lineup at 10:45, and the beers would be sold out at 11:05.
Oh yeah, man, that was the golden age of bottle shops. I think the Wood Brothers hype. It was like I'd literally get a case in, and I would make like a few $100s a night, and I'd be like, shit, this is
that's pretty wild. When it went hard,
kind of not died out, but it definitely is not as strong. Or
it slowed down a little bit. It's settled.
All hype seemed to have slowed down, I think, because of the less people are buying beer. I guess it's probably just literal market supply and demand. Like before, there was more demand than supply, and now the demand's evened out a bit. Everybody can kind of service the people that need to get the stuff, which is, I don't know, it's a bit of a nicer place because it's kind of annoying when you just can't get stuff. And it's like, oh, fuck's sake, dude. Like,
it's nicer as a consumer for sure.
Yeah, I get it for the brewery side. By the way, we didn't talk about this beer. Badlands Fog, the 2025. This is great. It's super juicy, tropical. It's it's got everything that you would expect. Once again, this is just shy of a month. It's 26th of December. Hitting just right, like Troy said, under a month. She's
I'd
a
say
beaut.
so.
Yeah. This one's always a low-key favorite of mine, but it never sells well because I feel like the gray cans never move that well. So like I always try and not hype it up, but I always try and tell people like this is a great beer, but something about it is just like one of those ones that never move the needle for the regular, like, we have our Badlands drinker who comes in and buys every release, but for those kind of curious drinkers, it never moves. And I'm always kind of shocked because I always find it one of the ones I really enjoy.
Yeah, I feel like sometimes with the Badlands labels, they're like, those ones. What are they called when he does like the spotlight on Kaladin ones? And
the old timey kind of labels.
Yeah, and I'm like, this is like the hypest. Pardon?
Was it Lumber for Ale? Is that one or like
that one?
Yeah, that's an example.
A great example.
Unhappy, terracotta,
Happy,
And they're just like the most hype haze you can get in this can that's very unassuming. And it's more just like, you probably just need to know, like, if it says the words Badlands on there, then just buy it. Don't think, just put your hand in and put it in the clip.
I agree with that completely. And I think that, like, from my perspective, you choose the breweries that you think are important to have or that you really want to work with. And I think that consistency is a huge part of that. And I don't know if I've ever had a Badlands IPA that I didn't think was great. Mm-hmm. So it's like whatever's on the can, it could be nothing for me. It doesn't matter. I'm like, I know there's a great beer in there. Yeah. And Troy just kind of, I don't know, he's got the magic touch with this stuff. They're always very good, in my opinion.
Couldn't agree more. It was important to have these guys on there. Like Nate said, this was one of the main. Like, I know it's funny. Like, you guys were talking. You guys have got so much more history with Badlands. Talking about the bottles in 2020. I only tried them for the first time, I believe, in the summer of 2021. My brother and I were still in Montreal, and we just split like an order of 12 because someone was saying how good it was, and we just split the order. And it was like, and he sent it out to me, and it was like, it was fine, but I found out later that it was in his, like, how almost every brewery has like a period where shit kind of fucks up for a bit. And it was that period when I tried. I went to Brewski, and Derek was like, try this one I did with Badlands. It's shit. And I was like, oh, okay. And I was like, yeah, this isn't great. And he's like, yeah, he goes, I don't know what was going on. Troy, he just went through it and he's helping me do. I'm like, oh, when was that? And he told me, I was like, oh, that was exactly when we bought, like, I got like Diamond shoes and Elmo and stuff. And then I'd had them since. I'm like, oh yeah, no, this was a total different thing. So my firsts, like, I knew that they were like hype and incredible. And the first time I tried it, it was in that little slump, which just like sometimes I hear it. I've heard it from the best of the best. Everybody seems to go through a time where like things aren't going right. It's the water, it's the hops, it's something going on, and just things aren't meshing, and it just picks back up again and gets right back into the groove.
I think that's a cool thing too about like bottle shop is like we know that information. You know what I mean? Like who the hell else is gonna know that? Like. You know what I mean? Like, I'm like, who else is going to tell you, like, yeah, so-and-so brewery's on a bit of a dip. It's like, oh, I talked to the brewer, they just changed their yeast. Or, you know what I mean? Like, and I literally have those conversations with people. And it's like, where else are you going to get that bit of knowledge than, like, mine or Mark's place? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Which I think is so cool, right? Like, it's just, like, you don't get that kind of insight, right? Like, even just, like, the whole, like, I remember that, like, you know, Sparrow last year when everyone was kind of like getting into, oh, Sparrow's pretty good. It's like, oh yeah, like, you know, Matt from Barncat's brewing there, and like no one knew that, right? And people are, oh, I love Barncat. It's like, it's kind of like you could share those kind of information, maybe even if Matt didn't want people to know that. But, you know, like it just like it's this way to get people like, and not like you can't really go to the LCBO or where not the LCBO is not a great example, but you know, other places you can buy beer, and you're not going to get that kind of information. So I think it's you know it's like a value add to beer for sure.
No, that's a good point. Like fewer like there's few people that have the same relationships with the breweries and see them as often as you guys do, because like we know a lot of the same people, but we're not seeing them every week like you guys are.
That's a great point. I got a very quick anecdote on that I don't know if I've said it on the pod, but I've told multiple people. I went into Durand to get stuff, and I hadn't seen Chris for a bit, and I just see this brewery called Sparrow that I'd never heard of, and I'm like, well, the fuck is this? But I was like, you know what? If it's in this fridge, it's fire. There is no chance in hell that Chris is going to go and buy something that he would think is mid. So I'm like, I grabbed one of everything that they had, and this is before I knew about Matt from Barncat. I think I told you, or I texted you or something. I was like, dude, what the hell is this? This is crazy. This is amazing. Then you told me, and it was like, it was the trusting of the person doing the curation that even if I didn't know you, I would have trusted the fridge, and that allowed me to, as someone who I feel like I'm, you know, one of the people who are tapped in, and it, like Nate just said, maybe not in touch with the people, but we, you know, talk to everybody and we sit down and have the pods, and I try to stay up on it. Nate tries to stay up on it, but Sparrow hadn't hit my radar yet, and I just thought that was such a cool example of the, on top of what you were just saying about bottle shops knowing the information, if a brewery's having a dip or these things are killing right now or da-da-da, like just trusting the knowledge that like you got to be even more on top of it than someone like people like us do, because you're stocking it. I'm like, I just thought that was so dope. It was such a fun thing, whereas someone like, I really consider myself tapped in, but I wasn't tapped in enough, but that fridge was. I was like, I love
that trust the fridge. I want to put that in here, because that is what it's about, right? Because we want to be providing the best possible products for people, and like I won't pretend like we hit 100% of the time, because I will order stuff that I'm excited about, and generally it's from a brewery that I trust. I know they're good. That isn't to say that, like, sometimes I'll be like, I'm super excited for that beer. Let's put it in the fridge. And it's like, you know, a bit of a miss. But I think the idea, like, trust the fridge is amazing, because we are trying our best to, like, curate what we think personally is, like, a cool selection of what will be, hopefully, very good beer. Right? I trust the fridge. I love that.
Mm.
That's the episode.
That's definitely the episode name.
Yes, I noted that down.
So did I.
Yeah. I just think it's like important, right? If you're going to go to a store like that you guys are you guys are curators of a culture, like craft beer being like a culture of, you know. Nate, I think our note just worked again. I just saw.
Yeah, it did. I was just about to tell you.
Yeah, we've been texting like, yo, the note is, we have a shared note where we put all the stuff, and it wasn't working the whole fucking time, and now it just did. Yeah, it's like you guys are taste. Okay, do you know what? I think of it like this. Maybe you guys are like taste makers in the community, and I'm saying this in the vein of trust the fridge, but like, if someone wants to get into craft beer, there's almost no better place to go. And if you want to go to a bar, you can go to a bar, you know, sure, that's another fantastic alternative as well. But if you didn't want to drink everything there and you want to have it at home, you can go to a place like Sidewalk or like Duran, and you know that there's people like Mark and Chris who are tapped in, who know the people, who go there every week, and who really are able to, because are we not drinking your tastes? Like, that's what we're doing. Nate and I happen to share both of your tastes, but that's what just kind of hitting me now, that's what you guys really truly are at the core of all of this, is tastemakers in craft beer, as far as taking the best of the best, reaching out to every single one, sometimes getting them shipped, sometimes going there in person, and then putting them all in this fridge in a way that's attractive, that is arranged in the, you know, the lagers are next to that, and the sours and the stouts and the IPAs and the doubles and all of this shit. Like, it's this whole like thoughtful presentation. So it's the curation and then the presentation to the ultimate end consumer like us. That's like it's like, not like, if you didn't know about beer and you'd walk in, you'd be like influenced by your taste, because if someone had a different taste, maybe there'd be a fridge, no shade, but a fridge full of brown ales or something. I like brown ales, but like, you know what I mean? Like, you guys are both haze dudes, you guys are crispy dudes, you know.
Well, we're in like a university town sort of here, and because we've been a business here for like over 15 years, where we make sandwiches and coffees and soup, and we're like a cafe, baked goods. Okay. A lot of our customers come in and they're not beer drinkers at all. Like, a large percentage of our customers are not beer drinkers, but they'll come in and they have to walk by this row of fridges behind me to get to the register over here. And so there's a lot of like people taking a chance on a can they think looks cool or sounds delicious. They're not beer fans. They're just like, ooh, this one has gummies in it, you know, or whatever it is, right? So we like, that is the type of customer that I do take into consideration as well when I'm buying, is like the person who's going to be captivated enough to try something new because it's unique and different. But like, our customer base is not just beer drinkers, you know, which I think it attributes to our still being around.
Yeah. The thing I was going to say is I'm actually jealous of Mark, because he actually writes notes for all of his beers, and I want to do that. I don't know if I'm like, so my wife writes notes for all the wine. So my wife essentially, she's done a bunch of like wine education. So she does most of our wine buying and stuff like that. So she writes like wine tags for all of the wines. I mean, some of our staff help out with that as well. But whenever Mark tells me he's writing these things, I'm always kind of jealous, because I want to do that.
Chris, we probably get a lot of the same beers, so I'll just like snap pics. I'll text you.
Yeah, because like honestly, the best place, like I remember actually going to a bookstore in Seattle. This is years ago, before I ever opened a coffee shop, and like it was an independent bookstore, and it like had like staff picks and all these, like, I don't know, I just love the whole like, or like the video store idea of like, this is Chris's picks for movies. Like, I just love that. Like, I love the idea of like curating, not necessarily in like, I have a better taste than you, just like curating, like, these are my tastes, and
like, here's what I'm liking this week.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Like, we had staff picks in here for a long time, because we had a chalkboard. It's like since been replaced with a painting, but it would be staff picks, so everyone that worked here would pick a beer. And I totally agree, and I love that idea when you would walk into a movie store and you would see like Wendy's pick.
Yeah.
And then you'd rent it and you love it, and then you go back next week and you'd be like, "What's Wendy into this week?"
It's the best.
Shout out to Wendy.
It's like I love that idea. I actually like miss that we don't have that anymore, but I'm on board with that for sure.
Yeah, that's such a cool idea. And like I feel like as well, even just as you guys were both talking about it, like I know most of the staff in Durand, maybe not all of them by name, but like I'll usually have a chat, like, or at the very least, they know who are familiar at least, and you can have like little small talk and stuff. And like it, because you have that sort of relationship with the coffee people who are in the cafe, like it, and a lot of them know about the beer as well, because a lot of them work the bottle shop shifts as well. So they're not like, you know, they're tapped in a bit. And even if they're not, that's fun, because then like, what do you like as someone who's not a beer nerd like the four of us? That's even cooler. Like that they're not some fucking crazy hype nerd and whatever, you know. Like they might be in there and they'll shout out the brown ale. I know Sparrow did a fantastic brown ale, so like I genuinely really like those. So like that's super cool to go and, you know, you have that on. That's not a bad idea, boys. You both should bring that back, Mark. I don't know, Chris, that could work, man. Like just a dry little whiteboard or a blackboard.
Basically,
or something like
what I've started doing is, because I'm not here as often during the day as I used to be. So what I have is like notes on all the beers in the fridge, and then what I've started doing recently is I'll take the beers that I think are most exciting for each style. So it'll be like, you know, lager, IPA, stout, sour, cider, non-alcoholic, and I'll write notes like just for the staff about like why I think those ones are exciting. And why, if someone's saying, "Oh, what's a good lager?" you can reference this, and then I'll keep that list updated. And my staff all have really diverse tastes too, so you know I give like a good discount for all the staff on the beers. It basically is like a break-even situation for me, so they can sort of buy all the beers they want to at cost and taste them, and then be able to better interact with customers. It's like I know one guy loves lagers and one girl loves sours and one guy loves stouts, and it's cool to see how like diverse the just like the palates are that work here. So I feel like you get a totally different
for sure
question from anyone when you come in and ask a question. Like anyone that works here is going to tell you something different, which is it's cool. That's what beer is all about. You know, people like different things.
Oh, that's great. I love that.
Yeah, that is super cool. And just getting that across the thing. Another, like, on that, like, when people come in and they're looking through the fridge, then, like, are they, okay, two-part question. Probably, like, first thing is, how is your fridge, how are your fridges, like, laid out? Are they laid out? Some people lay them out by style, some people lay them out by brewery, etc. And then second, like, what have you guys seen that people like look for? Say, you know, are they coming in looking for a style? Are they looking for a brewery? Are they just looking for a pretty label? Are they looking for a price? What's the general vibe for both of those things?
Yeah, I'll go first there, Chris. Like right when you walk in, so the far fridges right here, like it's like Saison and sort of like some larger bottles. And sours. It's like kind of the first thing you see when you walk in. And then second row of fridges is like all IPAs. Lower shelves are all stouts. And then over behind me here, it's all lagers and ciders. So it's broken down by style for me. And then every now and then there's like some miscellaneous styles. Like I don't get multiple wheat beers. It's like I'll order a wheat beer occasionally and I'll find where it goes, you know, but basically it's like, it's broken down by style that way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ours is definitely style too. Like right side, like we have one kind of big fridge and then one smaller fridge. The big fridge, the right-hand side is all hazy IPAs. Well, I mean, there's some West Coast in there too, but it's all IPAs. It's essentially like single IPAs and then a couple rows of double. And then the bottom row is triple and above, so we have all of the triples, quads, quintuples, mostly third moon beers.
All of the insane shit from Third Moon.
A little bit of
I would say like within each fridge too, it's like I'll I'll put the breweries side by side. You know, so
Yeah.
for me, it's like all the Third Moon would be on one shelf, all the Badlands is on a shelf.
Right.
Yeah. I feel like
style.
that's such a good indicator of how like popular or how much we like a beer. It's like the only two breweries that get a full shelf is literally Third Moon and Badlands.
Badlands, yeah.
That makes sense.
And then the rest of them are all kind of like for IPAs are mixed in. So it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, definitely it gives you a sense. And then like, yeah, the left side of our fridge is Pilsners, lagers. Then we have usually only one shelf of sours because summers it kind of picks up, but I'm also just like, you know, we have what we have. And then we usually have two shelves of stouts in the bottom kind of thing.
And your pale ales are usually right under the lagers, I think.
Yeah, sorry, the pale ale. Yeah, we do have a shelf of pale ales too, which is weirdly the style that I don't know if Mark finds this too, but is the style that never sells.
Yeah.
no matter
Okay.
what brewery.
Do you think that, like, is it because my thinking? I feel like I do see them sit longer too. Do you think that they like it's because they're not just put in with the IPAs, like? Because they don't, both Third Moon and Badlands, which are primarily the pale ale, sometimes it's Willowboard and a few other things, but and All My Friends or whatever. But if you put them, if there's room, because often there's not room, but say if you put the Third Moon ones, like Rise or whatever, on the pale ale, on the far left side of the Third Moon thing, and the same with like, you know, More or Less or the Badlands ones, do you think that might make them sell more?
Yeah, it's a possibility for sure. I definitely don't think it's like where we have our pale ales is definitely not ideal, but it kind of just has to be there. But yeah, I sometimes think that, but I don't know. Yeah,
The IPA fridge is probably pretty full as it is, eh?
Yeah,
it's pretty full.
It's hard, and then it's also like I do want to make a distinction. You know what I mean? Because I think the reason those breweries are releasing it as a pale ale is because it is different
beer.
Yeah.
So,
it is for sure. It's 100% different.
Yeah. So I probably could place it in a different spot that was better, but I still don't feel like it belongs on the IPA side. But yeah,
I will put pale ales on the same shelf as a quadruple IPA. Like, to me, it's like it's a pale ale, IPA, double IPA, triple, quad, whatever it is. Like, those are all different types of pale ale, basically.
Yeah.
And how do they move for you?
They're not as well as IPAs or bigger stuff, you know.
Right.
But it's like, I love pale ales personally, and I've actually thought about, like, should I have them in the lager fridge? But like, I don't. I haven't gone that direction. But like, I personally, like, I love drinking pale ales. And
yeah, for sure. I mean, like, honestly, one of my favorite releases every year, which may make me very basic or something, but Badlands Reality or whatever, Reality is like one of my favorite. Like, I will crush so many of those beers. Like, I will order an extra 12 to bring 12 home with me, but like, people are not into it. It's just like, but I love that. I love that beer. Like,
It's a banger.
I don't
What
know
is
if
it?
you got the email, Chris, or you saw that Tooth and Nail is releasing the unfiltered Vim and Vigor. And they
Yeah, they are.
In cans?
pre-orders for cases. I was like, I will take 3 cases, and
yeah.
one of those is going home with me.
Yeah. Totally.
Are you serious? Oh, motherfucker. Nate, you know what to do because I'm about
I
to
know
leave
what to
next.
do.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I got you.
When does that come out?
It's
Like
out now.
Next
Oh,
week,
it-
yeah.
Okay. When
Or at least it's shipping to us next week. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
but it's out at the brewery now.
it's out of the brewery now. Okay, I leave
I got you.
Wednesday, so I might not. Worst case, if I miss it, because it might probably be gone by the time I get back. God damn.
Oh well, yeah. Like it'll be
I
gone
got
by
you.
the time you get back, but I can hang on to it for you.
Yeah.
Beautiful, man. This is how we got to do it. Okay, interesting. Yo, the pale ale thing is funny because it's a fun conversation because it's like it almost like Chris, you got it separate. Mark, you've got it with the other IPAs, but it sounds like it's kind of sells equally between you both. It wasn't like either strategy is, resulting in higher sales. Because sometimes I was thinking, if I'm looking at the Badlands shelf, because like you said, it's one of the ones that has a shelf, and I don't look to the left in that other fridge and I don't see those other two, I always sort of like, I know where things are, so I'm like, if whatever I'm after, I know where to look. But if I'm coming into a fridge for the first time, I see all the Badlands all at once. I'm like, oh, this brewery must be important. And then you don't look around and put two and two together. Like, you know,
Yeah.
I wonder if, like, is it, I guess at the end of the day, it's what the consumers want, it sounds like.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's an interesting thought because, like, the same thing is like, yeah, Badlands, like Trinilla porters or what, like the porters they release and things like that. Like, they don't necessarily sell a lot either. But maybe if I put them on a shelf all together with Badlands stuff, they would. But like, maybe the person who likes an IPA from Badlands would try a stout, but otherwise they aren't looking at the stout shelf. Yeah, it's there's definitely like a lot of ways to kind of play with it, but the problem is stocking a beer fridge is a pain in the ass. So it's
you got
changing it around is not the easiest thing you could do.
No, it's a challenge, and it's even the way you guys are both talking about, just even thinking about the what you call it, like the actual logistics of it. It's kind of wild, and it's like merchandising meets psychology. Like,
Yep.
Yeah,
I love restocking the beer fridge. It's like, you know, I usually will do it sort of like late at night, and I'll come in and I'll drink a few of the beers that I'm putting away, and I'll reorganize the whole thing, and I'll write my notes. And honestly, it's like therapeutic for me, like just to do the fridges. I love it.
You get kind of zen about it.
A little bit, yeah. I genuinely
That's cool.
like.
I love that.
It's like some people want to like sit in a hot tub. I want to restock a beer fridge. You know.
yeah. I don't think I get zen about it. I think I go the opposite. Like, I think my staff think I'm like I don't know, OCD or autistic or something, because I'm just like, why would you put that beer with this beer? This needs to be like, I get very but I also ask my staff to do it rather than coming in and do it myself. So I should expect that. But I also really enjoy it though. I worked at a grocery store for like my teenage years, so I love facing stuff, and other people don't have that same.
I know that's
I feel like it's a cool OCD thing.
Sorry.
No, please, Mark. No, please.
I was saying, I went to Haze Fest.
I
think it was like maybe 2 years ago. Over at, we were talking about Evan earlier.
Yeah.
Like, I forget what year it was, but I went to his shop and he was just slammed all day, right? And I'm just hanging out in there having a good time, and the beer fridge is like getting low. So I'm like, Evan, let me restock your beer fridge. Are you kidding me right now? And I'm like, let's fucking go. I remember it's like he slammed, everyone's wasted, I was. And I'm
you're
just
like, I'll do this.
Redoing the fridge, just like loving every second of it.
Yeah. My wife's always like, when I go pick up beer, my wife's well, you got home 2 hours ago. What took? I was like, well, I had to restock the fridge. Like,
I'm like staring at it. You got like milk crates
organized.
Yeah, it's the funnest thing. I used to work at McDonald's when I was like 15 to 19, and one of the things that's like maybe not the front facing as much, but like having like I was on when I first did. It's called like on dress. So you're on the grill. So you're on doing the meat. You're on buns or you're on dress. And I was always on dress. It means I put the mustard, ketchup, my onion, pickles. Like I could do that shit in my sleep. And one of the things was refilling the fridge. I had to go downstairs, get the packets of cheese. And I don't know why, but I got like same level of OCD, like happiness from making sure there was plenty of the lettuce bags, of the cheese bags, of all the different stuff. I love that. So like in front of me here, we have these little shelves, and I got like fucking these little trays full of Trader Joe's spices. I got like 4 of each, and they're all arranged properly, and like all the different chips, and then chocolates and fucking cookies and stuff. And like even like toothpaste and fucking like shampoo and mouthwash and Pepto I'm seeing there, and like it's, I don't know, it makes me very happy. So I guess I'm a bit OCD too. So I hear what you guys are saying. I think that's I'm happy for you both. I think it sounds like it's kind of fun, isn't it, to like figure it out, like where does it belong, and like because you care about the product. So there's like that OCD thing that obviously comes from different places, like Chris at the grocery store. So it sounds like it's a similar brainworm, whatever we have. But like doing that is like it's at the ultimate, like really you're doing that for people like the 4 of us that are just beer nerds that are gonna walk into your space and are going to soak this up and just going to be like, oh wow, okay, where do I even know? And everything is like has this somewhat logical order that you guys at least felt was logical at the time, and you know, I don't know. It's like it's another element of the craft and the art of all of the beer stuff that potentially doesn't get the credit that it's due, because filling a beer fridge is essentially what you guys are positioned it as. It's a bit of an art to that.
Mm-hmm. For sure, yeah. I think
that's so fun.
Yeah, I think it's more complex than you would maybe think about. Just taking a quick glance at it, it's definitely more complex.
Yeah, that's so sick. We have so many other things to keep touching on here. Unless do you have something, Nate? Were you gonna say something?
No, I was actually thinking it might be time to get into the stout.
Ooh, how you guys looking with the hay? Okay,
yeah,
it's just me. As the kids say, let's fucking go. So, I haven't had one of these in a hot minute. I feel like these aren't released as much. They haven't been released for a while, eh?
Well, at least since they did like the 4-pack at once a few months back.
I remember.
Whenever that was.
Yeah, that was summertime.
Yeah.
No, what? That was in the summer. The 4-pack with the
was.
maple. Wow. God,
yeah, man.
Time fucking flies. We are, for those who aren't watching on video, we are rocking Third Moon's Each Beast of God coffee stout. And this particular 8.5%, and this one has El Salvador washed red bourbon beans from Morning Roast, which that's a fantastic spot. This is such a fire stout series.
And this is a series that has like that has been around almost since the
beginning, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely a long time, yeah.
Yeah, so obviously we talked a lot about Third Moon. Badlands and Third Moon have been some of the breweries we're talking the most about. Tell us more about why we chose this particular beer, fellas.
I thought it would be nice to end on a stout, and I think
well, you're not wrong.
Third Moon are extremely good. Also, Chris is really into coffee, and we've talked about this series of beer before, and I think that Chris would be able to shed some light on how the coffee pairs with the beer, and I just think it's a really nice kind of beer.
Look at that head, dude.
The other thing is, whenever I go to Third Moon, like usually it's Jim, but Jim, like someone always offers me to try the beer, so I always get a chance to have a beer with Mark or whoever when I'm at Third Moon, which is always amazing. Well, not like it's always just fun to actually be able to have a beer with other people who are into it as much as you are. So it's nice to chat with when you're actually drinking something like that. But yeah, this particular beer, I remember I haven't even taken a sip here, but I remember just thinking how nicely, and it does, yeah, like the roastiness is just like kind of perfect on it. It's not too roasty. It's not too, like, you're not getting it too overdeveloped taste. You're also not getting too much fruit on it. So it's like a really classic coffee taste. And I think that kind of like speaks to like El Salvador is a very, it's Central America. So, I mean, not to get too much into coffee, but they don't grow it at really high levels. So what that means is we're getting coffee that is much more in the kind of vein of like chocolate, like cherry, dark sort of notes. So I feel like those are the ones that are really best suited for stouts a lot of the time. I think it's kind of fun. Like I remember we sourced a geisha for like all my friends or something, and geishas are like some of the most rare coffee, and they give off really fruity notes. And I think those are kind of cool in some way, but I think like your classic coffee, like this is a classic coffee stout. Like this is, I don't know, to me, this is like, I can't imagine a coffee, like a coffee stout tasting any like more coffee. Like it's kind of perfect.
Any more coffee.
It's perfect. Like it's roasty, but not too roasty. And it's
like,
it's not that.
Hearing you describe this is making my mouth water.
Oh, totally.
Like, please nerd out on coffee more.
Yeah, man. It's in fact, I was doing I'll tell you more about it off air because we're not announcing it all that. But I was at a cafe, a roastery yesterday, because we're doing a coffee bean collab for our anniversary, our 10th anniversary in April, and one of the ones we tried to see was one of the geishas. And it was like I was getting the dude was breaking down all the different stuff, and the one that we chose was a single origin in the end, but just explained there was one we tried that was like fermented with kefir on that, and then there was like this coffee flavor wheel, and he's explaining all the different. I was like, yo, like I know it made me feel so fucking dumb. Like I know so much about beer because of talking to people like yourselves, and we've been doing this for 10 years, and I love coffee. I know Nate does too, but I don't know. I've made me realize how little I knew about coffee and how complex it is in comparison. No, not in comparison to beer. It's a different world. It's very complex. There's so much to know. There's so many, like, he's explaining the natural, the honey, the washed, and all the different versions of how you actually remove the cherry and then get the bean and then, like, fuck, dude. So, yeah, this series is so impeccable. And even just going through, just seeing on Untapped, scrolling through, trying to find all the different ones. There's so many different variants that you guys have.
Yeah,
Third
there've
Moon
been
have done.
so many. It's true.
It's so cool. I mean, like, obviously, one of the GOAT coffee stouts in Canada is Péché Mortel from GDCL. I feel like this has got to be up there with some of the best consistent series of coffee focused stouts that it's not even that crazy. This is 8.5. Like it's reasonable, and there's so many different variants, and most of them are, is you guys correct? Most of them are with morning roast. Is that right?
Yeah, I think all of them are.
I feel like all of them. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I didn't want to say that. But like, there's so many different. One time I spoke to the dude when I lived in Montreal, and he sent me like these little tiny 30-gram bags of like 15 different ones. So I got to like kind of like try them all, and like he's really doing some super fun stuff. And I love that Third Moon has this relationship with home. I forgot his name. What's the dude from Morning Roast?
Joe.
Joe.
Joe, yeah.
Joe from Morning Roast, and he like his attention to like the coffee and like the roasting side of it and how it would pair with the beer is like just as intense as Bebo's attention to like how the beer will be made to work with the coffee. Like, so those two guys coming together to collaborate on this series of beer is like just like pros
Just magic.
in their field.
Yeah.
Like, it's like these are the top two guys that you want collaborating. Like Joe's amazing with coffee, Bebo's amazing with beer. They both just nerd out about it. They talk about like all the little details, and those beans will like show up at the brewery within like minutes of being roasted. I feel like.
Oh, come on.
Yeah.
Oh, dude,
Yeah,
that's-
Joe. He particularly understands like how to roast it for how it's going to translate to coffee, because it's not like just roasting it to like brew it as a coffee. Like, especially like depending, like I don't know if you guys have. Well, I'm sure you've tried it, but Third Moon also did a whole thing where they cold brewed the coffee instead of just putting like conditioning it on coffee beans. So they would actually add like full like cold brew to the tank instead of just like coffee beans to condition it. And cold brew gives you a much more like intense sort of coffee vibe to it. But I feel like Joe is very much in touch like how to roast it properly, so that I found that a lot of coffee can give off really either like burnt kind of Starbucks vibes to me and bad ones, or kind of like vegetative kind of like vegetal kind of notes on ones that are underdeveloped. And I think Joe really does a great job of like, he knows how to roast coffee for beer. Like he's.
Is there a different approach, do you think?
I think he just realizes how it's going to be used, and like how like when you're roasting, there's all these different things. But I think he's figured out like how dark to go, how like how much the beans need to be susceptible. Again, if you're going to just condition it on beans, it's different, and if you're going to do cold, like I think he's figured out all those kind of aspects, which I think is super cool. And I say this because. For Durand, I've got to collab with some like breweries, but like it's always on a fucking coffee stout.
Of course.
I love coffee stouts, don't get me wrong, but like IPAs are my first love. But I've had to think a lot about how a coffee is gonna like interact with this stout. So I really appreciate like Joe's approach to that, because like I've had to think about it a lot, and I'm not a roaster. I'm just more like I know what it tastes like, and I have an idea of how it's going to interact with like that kind of base beer after tasting the base beer. But so I just think like I think Third Moon coffee stouts always hit well because I mean, obviously the beer is great, but I think Joe is working with the same person all the time is just relationships just help things to be better, you know? So, but yeah.
Yeah. You know what? That's such a good point because you're working with the same roaster. They've done probably 20 plus versions of this over the last, like, I guess this would be year 5. It'd be turning 5 in May.
Yeah.
And, like, that is so sick. This is so fucking good. It's sweet. It's big. It's bold. Oh, my goodness.
I might go so far as to say that this is the best Each Beast to God I've ever tasted.
You know what? The only other one. Remember, there was the one that was there was two. There was like a dark roast and a light roast.
Yes,
I do remember that one.
I think the light roast was the other one that would rival this. But yes, I think you're not boosting it all.
This is up there for sure. Like this is fucking phenomenal.
It's a banger. Yeah. It's like creamy. It's so good.
Oh my god! Like the texture, the texture of it is exquisite.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's it's so smooth, yet the the coffee flavor is coming through so strong, but it's not bitter. It's not excessively bitter.
Yeah.
But there's also not excessive sweetness either. It's so well balanced.
Perfect, yeah. And it's like a perfect coffee for it.
Yeah.
And the alcohol is basically indetectable.
Yeah, you wouldn't even know that you're drinking alcohol.
This is insane.
Yeah, honestly, the more sips I have of this, the more I think maybe you might be right, Nate. Like the flavors that are coming through. Now, speaking of that, just since we're being nerdy about coffee too, like the washed red bourbon bean from El Salvador. So is that really driving a lot of these flavors, or is it sort of like the malt profile and all that stuff in conjunction?
I mean, I think the base beer is probably the most important part of it, but I do think I think El Salvador beans are well positioned for coffee beers because they present as chocolatey, roasty, very approachable, and they don't have a ton of they have some sweetness, but it's not overwhelming. And again, Joe did a really good job not to over roast it, so you don't get that kind of To me, the thing I hate most about coffee stouts is when it tastes like espresso, like something that's too dark, too heavy. I don't want that in a beer. That's it's sort of like, when you get a dessert stout when it's too sweet. To me, a coffee stout when it's too bitter, I'm just I have no time for it, but that's my least favorite kind of coffee stout. So I think this one is working perfectly. I mean, a red bourbon is also a really, it's a very palatable coffee bean too. So.
Oh, was I saying it wrong? It's not bourbon, it's bourbon.
Well,
because
that's how Central American people pronounce it. So
that makes sense.
Coffee, that's the coffee circle.
Saying that shit. No, this is great. I'm trying to learn, bro. It's like
Chris, what are all the coffee stout collabs you did? You did one with Fine Balance.
And we did one with Fine Balance.
You've done a couple with them, haven't you?
We've done 2 with them. Yeah, one barrel aged, one not barrel aged.
Yeah,
we did a Wood Brothers one. We've done 2 All My Friend ones. I think that's it. At this point,
yeah.
And then I was trying to get Joe and I have been cupping a bunch of coffees that we were going to try and pick something for a Third Moon collab too, but we haven't picked because I want to do something not interesting. I want to do something not a stout. I want to try and do something.
Coffee hazy IPA.
Yeah, something maybe a haze or maybe a smoothie sour or something.
Smoothie, bro, like a chocolate, like a mocha smoothie.
Yeah, exactly. We've talked Bebo and I have talked about doing a mocha. So, but we're trying to find something that works for that. So.
This might not be interesting enough for for what you're aiming for, but coffee brown ales can be tight.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. I love coffee brown ales, yeah.
I feel like we've been dapping up brown ales on this episode. It makes me very happy.
Yeah, for sure.
Very 2011 of us.
Chris, how big is your brown ale section in
pretty small. It's pretty tight. Non-existent for the most part, but
one. You know, it was a great one. Tooth and Nail was speaking of them. They got a great brown ale. Every time like Nate goes to them, if it's available, I definitely grab the.
Hell yeah, 100%.
Yeah, and like looking just over Mark's right shoulder, I can see the red tops of the silver cans there.
Wow, that's an eye. Oh yeah, down the bottom.
Revelry and Vim and Vigor now. I always have Tooth and Nail. Tooth and Nail is my favorite brewery, probably.
Matty's the best. I would hug him. Yeah. He gives great hugs, Matt. He's such a fucking legend.
They make amazing beer.
Yeah,
truly.
They truly do.
Yeah, they're
and props to you for delivering it to the people of Waterloo.
Yes.
Yeah, there was one of the first within the first year of opening the shop. I guess we probably opened in June, and this was at some point that summer. You couldn't get Tooth and Nail beer anywhere, and I was like, I want Tooth and Nail beer. My wife and I took a trip to Ottawa. I had I had like a Honda SUV, and I loaded like 24 cases of Tooth and Nail in the trunk.
Gerard Como styles.
Yeah, it's like, I want that beer. And you know, it's like stuff like that, you know, going back to like maybe a brewery being reluctant or whatever, but like stuff like that where you sort of like earn the trust and stuff with working with certain breweries. It's like, oh, this crazy guy showed up and bought like 25 cases of beer. Maybe we should ship beer out there.
Yeah.
You know, I don't have to worry about driving to Ottawa anymore. Beer gets sent here. I'm not saying it's because of me, but like, you know, there's many
factors. It's because of me.
It probably is because of you.
Yeah, you're welcome, everyone.
You know what? Tooth and Nail is one of the weird breweries that like never got back to me. I think Craig actually like hooked like
that was me.
Got them into my fridge, and only recently, like within the last year, because for some reason they like never responded to my emails. Yeah,
I talked to Matty. I was like, dude, can I get it in my local store? I want, because I only got it when Nate sent it to me. Nate was like, hey, I'm going to Tooth and Nail. Do you want some? I'm like, fucking yes. Send me the thing. Send me the picture of the list of what, because they don't have their list anywhere. That's the other thing. They don't update their website with what's available. So then Nate has to be like, all right, I'm going to be here in 15 minutes. Be on your phone. I'm like, all right. Yeah. And that's why I was like to Chris, I was like, dude, can you, what's up? And then you explained that. Yeah. And I think Godspeed too. I think I might have put you in touch with them, or at least giving you a nudge to get it going.
Godspeed was one of, like, yeah, you gave me a nudge to get him back in the fridge. It was more of like, when I went on a anti-short can.
I totally get it. Yeah, you explained it all. And if it was like, at the end of the day, you guys have different market forces than the breweries itself, right? Like you guys have to sort of protect your fridges and what people want. I think it almost, at the same token, there's that, but there's an element as well of that tastemaker thing that I was saying, where like if you guys are just like, no, we're having a fucking True History who do impeccable shit. We're having Godspeed. We're having Silent Hill. We're having Tooth and Nail. Burdock have their wicked short cans. Blood Brothers have the short cans. Like, I'm like, it's great. It's great to see those sort of ones, because I think there's so many at the end of the day, if there's so many breweries doing the best of that style, and those styles happen to be packaged in short cans, then it's kind of you can't challenge it, because it's well, what the best of the best are doing it this way. So what do you want me to do? They don't make fucking tall cans, bro. Like,
I think for me personally, it's like I'm a late adopter of Pilsners and lager. I don't know. I feel like I used to just be like, oh, I'll just buy a, European, well, whatever. I mean, some of the European stuff at the LCBO is great, but like, to me, like, I could just do that for a lager. And so I feel like I'm a late adopter now that I actually recognize what a really good Pilsner lager is. Now I'm like, I need these in my fridge, but it's like I had to get to that place. Right. Admittedly, because like I was very much an IPA haze fanboy. You know what I mean? I mean, I like Westies too. It's not more of just like I'm an IPA fanboy. So it took me a while to kind of get to that point to really appreciate a good Pilsner and lager. So,
but then your tap list at the bar is also equally, like, I feel like there's always at least a couple of different options of impeccable crispies as well.
Yeah,
so I guess it's translated across to that.
Yeah, I definitely, definitely. That is like me also, like definitely gaining a new appreciation and just like market forces too. Like, you know,
You
when
need
you
to-
see your pilsners and lagers selling, you know, twice as fast as the IPAs, you gotta make a change. You gotta
gotta
add
put it
another, you know, crispy
No,
tap.
totally.
So,
Was it the same for you as well, Mark, as far as like your because this comes back to what we were saying before about you guys being tastemakers. So obviously Chris's taste was influencing his fridge. Was it the same for you, where it was like maybe as your taste changed, your fridge changed accordingly?
Well, I've always like loved lager. Like when Godspeed first opened, I was there within weeks.
I was in the
and,
second day. Yep.
You know, it's like
Let's go.
I show up and I'm like, can I buy X amount of cases? This is before the pandemic, before the bottle shop. And, you know, so it's like I've always like had a deep appreciation for good lagers. So it's always been part of what we do here at the shop and it's something I pride myself on, is like having a really good selection of lagers. And it's like, you know, you get the hype, the big stouts, the hazy IPAs, but like I think lager is like, it's what I want. When people come in here, I want them to have options for good lager. So that's what I drink the most of. It's what I stock a lot of, and like I don't know. I think it's a great style. So I didn't like make any changes to like my taste. I think if it comes to like me stocking beers that I maybe wasn't really into for a certain period, it's sours. And I think for me the thing with like the sour ales is like finding the balance with like just fun flavors and stuff. Like for us, Fairweather is one of the more popular breweries that we sell, and it's like they always have crazy fun sours, and they're usually pretty good, and the labels are really nice, and it's like a staff favorite. So like this sours is the thing that's like not necessarily in my wheelhouse. I drink like, you know, lambics and like barrel aged sours and stuff like that, but like just like kettle sours with a bunch of different stuff in them is not necessarily my go-to. So that's the style of beer I find myself like not necessarily like knowing as much about, but trying to like find the fun ones that will resonate with people.
So there's a balance between both of your personal tastes and then of course what people are asking for, really. At the end of the day, like you can't not have sours because people are going to need it. But if you're not into it, you got to figure it out.
Yeah, just kind of balance it.
And that's like,
fellas. Sorry. Go ahead, Mark.
No. It's okay. It's okay.
No. I was going to deviate, so I don't want to pull you off your point. So go ahead, please.
Oh, I was just going to say that like the way like Chris was saying that the market sort of decided that he should have more lagers on tap. Like that's sort of how it has gone with sours for us in here. And of course, they're slower in the winter months, but in the summer, it's like we're going through lots of them. And I'll generally like try new stuff that we get in the fridge. I do admittedly like really like the like slushies. Like I think those are fun. Like Third Moon, Counterpart, Rorschach. Breweries that are making the fun smoothies. Like I do enjoy those more than just like a straight up kettle sour. But I think sour is one that I'm like way more willing to take a chance on a style. Like I'm like, if that sounds fun, I think people will probably be into it. I don't know. So that's sort of like I think sours are my lagers for Chris, maybe. I don't know.
Hey, like you got to get there eventually, I guess, in different stuff. And it's like, I guess maybe that, is it fair to say that owning these stores and having this responsibility for you guys has exposed you to different things and therefore forced you to try different things and potentially influence your palate and what you're into?
For sure. I mean, I feel like we have like, I feel like I have a, you know, obligation to try everything, not everything that's coming out, but you know,
a lot of it.
Yeah. Right. I often kick myself that I didn't start an Untapped account when I first opened the bottle shop, because I feel like it would be pretty epic.
You could go
'Cause,
back.
like, I don't know how you are, Mark, but I feel like I could try everything that goes in the fridge. So it's definitely pushed me outside of my boundaries a lot of the times. Like it is the opposite because like I like sours a lot. So I was always on top of that kind of stuff. But yeah, the amount of lagers that I ended up trying and that I never would have before and things like that. And then even like the bottle, like some of the bigger bottles too, just like getting into some styles that I wouldn't have necessarily tried, like a lot of saisons and things like that. I mean, it's always it's always interesting, and I mean, it just gives us such a good opportunity to try all these things, right? I mean, like, not many people are in the position that we are, where we get to try. Like, sometimes I feel spoiled. Like, I don't know how other people feel, but it's the same thing with coffee, where like I'm drinking the best of the best all the time. That sometimes I forget that, and I don't realize how spoiled I am, and I'm like, man, I get to literally consume the best consumables available to me in Ontario, and so many and I don't even appreciate it sometimes, which I try to kind of remember sometimes. But like, I don't know if you guys get that too, or like,
I agree completely. It's like ruined ordering a beer at a restaurant. You know what I mean? It's like, and that's another thing I don't understand. Sorry, I'm not going to go off here, but it's like you go to a nice restaurant, their beer list is bullshit. It's like a restaurant that's like put so much love and care into their food has like a shit beer list. It just happens all the time. And it's like, what is going on here? And so I won't spend money on buying shit beers anywhere. It's like, I know I can drink the best beers anytime I want. So I'll just like have water. Thank you very much. You know?
Yeah. A cocktail or a glass of wine or something.
Yeah. Cocktail, glass of wine, but like,
But like for folks like us, like that can honestly ruin an experience at a restaurant.
Oh, for sure. And I feel like it's disrespectful to the clientele because you know what? Sometimes the ones that you're talking about, and I know exactly what you're talking about, Mark, they'll put a lot of thought into the wine list, and they'll just be like Molson Canadian, Heineken, or some bullshit for
really just
generic
beers.
It's insulting.
It's insulting because like people don't understand. And this is the thing with the problem with beer is that people don't understand like how adaptable. There's more styles of beer than there are of wine. Beer is more adaptable to more food than wine as well. No shade to wine. I fucking love wine, but it's more. It just is. There's more going on. But people don't know that. People don't understand that. Restaurants don't understand that a lot of the time. I find in the States it's so much better. Canada, it's like It's not bad. It's not bad.
I think it's getting better.
It's getting better. But like I remember I went to a restaurant. I went to with my boy who's coming from Australia. He's not much of a drinker, but we went to like Pizzeria Libretto in Toronto because we couldn't. And then the only beer that I was like I wanted him to. We just had like Peroni because there was nothing else on the menu that I was like fucking have Steam Whistle at least. Jesus Christ, like
yeah, that's not hard.
No, and in Quebec, it's even worse. Quebec is horrendous. I found that Ontario was a lot better. I felt like wherever I went in Quebec, I was just like either drinking wine or you're going to end up. I don't want to call out any names, but you've just got some really bad options.
Yeah,
it's the worst part. But I do like when you maybe that's cool for people like us when you maybe it's that shock to be like, oh damn, like all I do is drink fire. You know, so then it reminds you of that when you maybe start to take it for granted.
I think it also points to the fact that, like, again, it just, I mean, not to make excuses for the restaurants, but like, essentially they need to make money on alcohol. Otherwise, they don't make money, right? I mean, like the food for the most part, they're not making any money on. So, like, I think it really points back to the fact that like Ontario craft. Like the industry is overtaxed. Like, and I'm not I don't want to come off as an anti-tax person because I'm not. Like, I believe in well, I shouldn't even say that. I believe in government, but it's just alcohol tax is like, it's crazy.
No, it's out of control.
Yeah.
The OCB has a campaign against it, so you're not being ridiculous.
Yeah. So like, I mean, like, how can a restaurant, you know, like, or not how, but why would a restaurant bring in a beer that costs them, you know, $6? That's when they could bring in one that costs $1.75. Like
I would say that, like, and this is what I wrestle with all the time, is like, you could bring in a beer that costs you $2 and you sell for $9, or you could bring in a beer that costs $5 and you sell it for $13. It's like, all you need to do is increase your prices and you have a better product and you give a better thing to your consumer. Like, it's a better experience for the customer. So it's like, it costs more. But places choose to do that with beer, right?
Yeah,
it's like,
I think that there's not there's a lack of understanding or respect for, you know, quality beer for sure. Yeah. But I do wish that craft breweries could offer licensees a better price, essentially. Like, I'm not going to say that wine is like way cheaper, but like, we definitely get better discount. Like, at our bottle shop, we definitely get, in our bar, we get better discounts on wine. Like, there's better margins on wine. I mean, there's probably a multitude of things that go into that, but, you know, we get there's a better discount, no matter what. Like, so
that's a shame.
And it's a total government thing. Why it's not like the craft breweries don't want to give us like Mark and I a discount. It's just they can't. Like, it doesn't.
Yeah, of course.
Coming out of their pocket, like, essentially. Like.
Yeah.
How do you guys feel like for a quick piss? Because it's we broke the seal.
Yeah, sure. We're busted.
Cool? Yeah. All right, we'll be back in a
love
second.
it.
All right.
Alrighty.
And we're back.
Extended break. We had a little. That was a nice break, though, boys. That was good. We just had like a little bit of a chin wag. We were just hanging the fuck out.
Yeah, we went off there for a little bit.
Totally forgot we were doing the podcast, but we all basically finished the beers. Like, Mark is just like crushing them. He's knocking them back. So, you know,
C took 2 bathroom breaks in that time. That's that's how long a break it was.
You had a bathroom break, and I had to have a bathroom break from the break. That's how long. It's beautiful. So look, I really feel like a lot of the questions that we had written down, like I think we said at the beginning, you know, the regular pods, we just riff. These ones, we have a little bit more direction, and we kind of covered all of the areas that we wanted to cover sort of indirectly a lot of the time.
Yeah, like a bunch of the items kind of came up organically.
Yeah, and I feel like you guys really just painted the picture of the vibe of indie bottle shops and the pros and cons, the challenges, the benefits, and for both owners and consumers. And I feel like it's sort of given a lot more context for folks who haven't. And, you know, particularly for us, I would personally like to see a lot more breweries proactively working with folks like yourselves.
Yeah.
At the very least, just having a conversation, and maybe that brewery isn't a fit for what you're doing, but at the very least to have a chat and to see if it's if it's going to work. And I think that would be kind of the message here, was to get if you own a brewery and you haven't really dabbled in the independent bottle shop world, I mean, this is like a great sort of, you know, hopefully a little bit of a mini education on that and sort of where you can start, whether you reach out to Sidewalk or Durand or otherwise, and someone in your town or outside the town, which is almost more beneficial if it's outside the town, really, as you both explained. Maybe it's better because if they can get local, you just probably go direct to the brewery. You guys are supposed to supply the stuff that isn't local at the end of the day. So to kind of round this out and bring this bad boy home, like, what do you guys think the future holds for all of this? For independent bottle shops, do you think the laws will be more lax and people can open a place? Because obviously Nate and I, at the beginning, we realized we were mistaken in that you can just open up a shop without having, food aside from a packet of chips be offered. And do you think more breweries are going to be working with them? Do you think that there's a strong, future? Do you think that more people are going to understand that independent bottle shops are a place where you can get products like this that are unique and local and fun and better than if you go to an LCBO or a gas station or something like that? What's the general vibes from you guys?
I think that, like, the more important thing that I want to see is like more places supporting true craft beer. So whether it's a bottle shop or a restaurant or a bar, it's like if you are seeing like high quality products that are coming from small companies that are producing things on a small scale, that is just like a more exciting offering. So for me, seeing more places like work with smaller breweries would be ideal. Like I would love for Chris and I to not be the only purveyors in our regions of like these really good products. So I want to go anywhere and find certain beers on tap. So for me, that would be the goal, is like more people supporting like true craft beer. And then as far as bottle shops go, I think that it's a beautiful idea. Like I said earlier, like every town, every city should have one where the people who are into that kind of thing or wanting to explore that type of thing can go and see what they're into and like try a bunch of stuff and figure out what they want to like welcome into their lives on a more regular basis. And I'm not sure at this point about all the red tape that goes along with opening a bottle shop. As far as I know, it's still sort of like you need to be first and foremost, you have seating and you have some other purpose that you exist other than selling alcohol. But it would be great if those restrictions were relaxed and people could just open a straight up bottle shop and not be tied down to selling a food item with beer. And just like I would love to see the future of the bottle shop be that anyone can do it and can bring in great beer and provide that for their community. I feel like it's important not for just like having good beer get into people's homes, but also supporting the small breweries who are putting in the hard work to make like cool and interesting products. But that's sort of what I hope is the future. And I don't know if that is what it is, but that would be my hope. Yep.
I like it. I think that's the future we could all probably agree on right there.
Absolutely.
Christopher.
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously that sounds great, and I would love that. I'm also somewhat afraid. Not afraid, because I don't think Mark or I's business is going to be, put in jeopardy from anything, because I think that we both have built businesses. Like, I think our bottle shops are built on top, like we've said, on top of other businesses. So it makes a lot more sense for us. So like, selling alcohol is not our main our main driver. So it allows us to do something we really love. It's like more of an add-on, but I do sort of fear, like, if the government does change and allows more bottle shops, I just kind of fear for the corporatization of that. And I think some of that's already happened with wineries and wine selling. And I don't know. I always feel like, as things become more like available and more money comes into it, I think people, I don't know. I envision a future, unfortunately, where people spend a lot of money making their bottle shop look really beautiful and they sell really shit products. And I feel like that's kind of modern life in a sense. But so I just don't really want to. I hope that's not what happens. I hope more places like Mark and I's business open up, and I think some of that also falls on the shoulders of breweries. And I think now that we've sort of parsed through a lot of the bottle shops, I think it would be awesome if we could sort of work a little differently with breweries. But again, I've said it many times. I understand, like, breweries can't, hand out free beer to us or big discounts, because it does come out of their pocket. But I would love to see a world where we weren't necessarily treated as just any licensee, and we were treated as, an important part of the kind of beer scene. And I think some breweries do that. But I would love to see it where, certain breweries just kind of, like, I don't know, just in some way that we were, acknowledged as being a pretty important part of getting their brand out there. And I think in that sense, it just allows us to be a little bit more sustainable in whatever way that was. But not to be negative, but yeah, I just feel like I would love to see some changes which allowed us to be a bit more sustainable without, without us taking the loss, like fully, like a little bit more of a partnership, I guess I would love to see.
Yeah. With the breweries or with like the government side?
I mean, I think it comes down to the government's, like, changing things for the breweries, but I think also in some particular cases, like breweries seeing us more as partners than just like another, like, I feel like Mark and I are much different than just your regular restaurant. You know what I mean? Like
I would say emphatically so.
Yeah. Like, I think we're building community, and I think we're doing a lot more for us and those breweries. So I would love to see a little bit more of a, I don't know, however we could do it. Like, not even necessarily cheaper beer. Like, we were going to talk about, not to get us off the road, because I know we're going to wrap this up soon, but
it's all good.
Even how Mark was saying how he gives his staff a discount, which I also do. But you know what? I would love to just get a few more samples from breweries.
I was going to bring this up.
I'd love to be able to train my staff on all the beers without it actually costing me a lot of money, right?
What would be the optimal situation for that? Because this is something you and I have talked about. I'm glad you brought it up, because this was on the list.
Yeah,
what would be the best if a brewery was to sell you a case of beer? What would be do you need 1 can? Do you need 4 cans? Like, what do you need per SKU to train the stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I would say 2 cans would be more than enough, and I would love to see that. Like, I would love to see a brewery throw in 2 cans for every case. Not even for every case, but once you buy a case,
for every SKU.
Yeah, like, if you buy a case and then beyond, like, I don't need 4 free beers if I buy 2 cases, just 2 free beers once I buy a case, just to allow me to train my staff on those, because I can't. Like, I mean, not that I can't, I do in some extent. I give them cost, like, just like Mark does, we give them beer for cost, but I would love to, like, sit my staff down and do a tasting with all these beers, right? But it costs me in so many different ways, because I'm paying my staff to be there, I'm paying for the beer. Like,
yeah,
it would just be nice to have
time and product, all of this. Yeah.
And again, I also get it, it's not free for them to give us stuff, but it would be nice to, like, those are the things which I think would have a huge impact for us. I don't know if Mark feels
allows you to sell their product better.
Yeah, like in a way better way.
Yeah.
When I worked at restaurants, they always made sure the staff got to try the different new meals and stuff. So I just kind of feel like it's like the restaurant makes the meals. That's the difference. They're not that bringing it in. But I as a bartender, actually, I was a bartender at restaurants too for a bit. I was terrible, but they would make you try all the stuff. So it would be, I can understand that it would just be like, particularly if you're a regular customer, and you too are regular customers of arguably 10 to 20 different Fantastic Ontario breweries. So it's sort of, it's not like you would, I would imagine, based on what I've seen, as I've been in Hamilton for 2.5 years now, like based on going to Durand probably like once a week for 2.5 years, if not more, seeing the fridge and being like, oh, it's not like it's changing a lot. So it's the same brewery. So it's like a very regular customer from the wholesale point of view. So it doesn't seem unrealistic to me to just chuck a couple of cans in to be like, every staff gets 3 ounces or something, which is all you need to try a beer to understand what it is. Because when you close at 4:00 but the bottle shop closes at 6, there's somebody standing there in the thing guiding you through. Like I remember I was there with Dan from Zenon, and Juliana was there, and I was helping Dan because I was like, obviously I know the fridge, and she was like, hey man, thanks for doing my job for me. I was like, yeah, you're good, man. But like, she knew as well, but she would have known the stuff. She could have probably told him very similar things to what I told him, but it's sort of, it should be whatever's in that fridge, the staff of both of your establishments should have at least tried the liquid.
Yeah.
And I just feel it's just like a small thing, and it's almost like a gesture of, like you said, Chris, like partnership.
Yeah.
And like there's not many places that have a it's like this, like it's like a cultural tie-in to the brewery. LCBO is one thing and it's fantastic, but they don't give a flying fuck about you unless you're moving numbers. Beer store, same shit. Like restaurant, probably same thing, but you guys as these independent beer stores have this like friendship. Like we were talking about off air, like, you know, you guys were together with Evan from the Wheel Brew today at Third Moon and got to say, you know, send him off because it's the last trip as a part of the Wheel Brew, and you three were together. You didn't take a photo, you fucking crazy Brits, but like, you know, just the fact that you like there's like a camaraderie. You guys know each other. There's one thing we didn't fucking talk about here, by the way, was the advent calendar that you guys did together, which I want to get to in a second because that was the inspiration for this episode, if I'm honest. But just like knowing that like, who else is the LCBO guy? Is the LCBO buyer driving to fucking Third Moon and Badlands every week? Like, like you guys are?
Obviously not.
From an hour, like they're not doing that. That cultural buy-in is so deep. You guys are like like an extension of a brewery, essentially. Like, that is something that should be valued immensely and appreciated, and at the very least a couple of cans to make sure the staff knows it is not, you know, that will go a long, like you said, like go a long way. It's not making breweries feel bad about anything if they haven't done it, but like, just consider what businesses like Sidewalk and Duran do for breweries as well.
Yeah, and I think for me particularly, it becomes much more in focus because, like, when we get a keg, it's like kegs are priced so that you can taste, you know, 3 ounces of beer at a time, right? So like whatever we're selling in the bar on keg, like our staff is very knowledgeable about it. We, you know, we're not shy about allowing people to try it, but it's once you have to open a $5.35, you know, like a $5.35 can, just, you know, that's when it starts to hurt a little bit more, right? Because like, when you start to think about it, if you open a $5 can, it's like that's a good chunk of your profit on the case. Like,
that's
you're going to sell 2 or 3 cans to just make up,
to make that up,
and then
Wow, I never thought of it like that.
Yeah. So, yeah, and I mean, again, it's not something that has to happen. It would just help us. Like, I think it would just help us as a bottle shop, and just like, just nothing is better than when you can have your staff on board and taste something together to sell it. But it's also just like, it all comes down to like, how much does it cost you? So some sort of partnership which I would love to see more widespread. And again, some breweries are great at it, some are not as good, and some
less great.
Some don't participate in it, which is also fine. And those are the things where you understand you don't have an expectation for it, so it's, you know, it is. But
maybe they don't understand the value of it. Is kind of that's why I feel like we're drilling the point home here a bit. It's just like they might, you know, like for the volume that they're doing, like selling 1 to 2 cases of a SKU to places like you guys is not insignificant, right? It's not like they're moving fucking pallets to the LCBO or elsewhere.
Oh yeah.
Of one beer or whatever, you know. So
I guess it's just kind of important. It's kind of important to consider that kind of selling it to Durand or Sidewalk is not the end of the transaction. It's just that it's that these are the people who are selling your product.
That's a good way to say it. It's not the end of the transaction.
You can put a bit of investment into
enabling tasting or some shit.
Enabling these folks to sell your product even better.
And even like doing the tasting, like as you say, I like that, Nate, a lot. Like, not the end of the transaction. I think that's such a fantastic statement. And even to come and do, and I know, like, I don't know if what you do, Mark, on your side. I know that, Chris, you've had some tastings from different breweries over the time and wineries too. But it's sort of, I feel like it's slowed down a little bit. I couldn't tell you the last time I saw it, like that would happen. And you've had some cool tap takeovers in the bar, you know, from Third Moon, Badlands, Willibald. No, was it Willibald? Wood Brothers, actually, I think.
Wood Brothers,
Wood Brothers, yeah. And like those are super sick too. But like that's more of a larger thing because that means you just got to buy a whole bunch of kegs. But it's almost like just showing face from the brewery. It's got to be hard for breweries and just like go to Mark. Remember, we were me, you, fucking Chris, Bebo, Tiff. We were at Brewed and Bottled in Lewiston, in New York, in June last year. You guys were doing the Rochester Real Beer Expo with Will, and it happened to be the same day. The boys were there. We all fucking turned up. That was awesome. We were hanging out for a few hours. It was super fun because you guys turned up to do a tasting in Lewiston, New York, not even in your home state, because they had some Third Moon on tap, and then you were heading up another hour and a half to Rochester to do a beer. And I like that was so fire to me. Like that was so sick that you boys made the effort to do that.
It was really special that you were there too, because
man,
that we all love, and like we'll cross the border and go to Brewed and Bottled and buy beers, and it's
so
like,
do I.
It's like a
once
thing.
a month. Yep.
So to show up there when they're pouring Third Moon beer and you and Tiff are there, it's like that was a beautiful thing. It was a beautiful thing.
It was really nice, and that to me was like the epitome of just turning up. And it was just the brewers, the owners, the people turning up to show face, to talk to the people, to talk to the owners, to talk, and just being there. Like I just feel like that's like something that's like a part of the game. Like just like you were gonna be there at the festival, you were there at the beer store, and that needs. I mean, that was a more elaborate situation because you had to cross a border and you go to but you could just, people could drive whatever 30 40 hour whatever to go to Sidewalk, to go to Durand and pop up and do this, and to have similar situations where you're showing face, shaking hands. I was at the Third Moon one at Durand, I was at the Badlands one at Durand, and like dudes, because actually Troy just did the podcast at my house, and then we went right down afterwards, and it was a vibe. And then the room was packed. Went down for the Third Moon. All you boys were there. It was packed. It was just like, it was so nice. I'm like, this is what it's about, though. Is like showing love to the people that are showing love to you, and in this crazy economy that we talk about, like the world that we're in, like as far as beer. The popularity, the selling, the restrictions, all that, just like it's almost like the least you can do for people, Yeah. So I hope it encourages breweries. Like it's not even, once again, not making anybody feel bad about not doing the shit, but like
no,
just
it's good.
Consider.
Like Chris, I agree with what you're saying too about like I would love to see
Look at the pup.
Some more sample product come through, but like I don't know about you. But it's like we're always cycling through so much beer that if a brewery were to give us 2 free cans on every order of every beer that we send through, like that's going to end up costing them a lot over the course of a year, right? So especially if it's like shipping. So it's like when I think about it from like what it is from the brewery perspective, and like if it's like a case at a time, like because we're ordering small batches of stuff, it's like it's just like a difficult balance. Like I totally am on board with what you're saying. Like staff education is so important, and having everyone like be knowledgeable about the product. But if I'm bringing in like 20 plus new beers on a weekly basis, like I don't even think I could force feed my staff that many beers in a week to like be able to talk about it. You know what I mean? I used to drink every single beer that came in through the shop, and it's like, so it's hard because like a lot of places that will like do tastings with their staff, it's like we are carrying X beer. We now have Jutsu from Bellwoods on tap. Like everyone tastes it, but it's like they're ordering that every week for the next year. Right? The business that we're in is like always bringing like the new, fresh. It's like the whole list is changing on a weekly basis. So I find it like tough to see how that balance can be struck where it's like makes sense for everyone.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like I love the idea, but I just feel like it's difficult. Like it might be difficult for places and for us. Like if you're getting 8 new, or let's say you bring in 8 new beers a week and then you have 16 sample cans, like do you feel like you would be able to appropriately distribute those amongst all your staff to like be knowledgeable on 8 new products every week? I feel like it moves too fast in here to like.
Yeah.
get that up, and there's like a certain responsibility that comes onto like the customer's shoulders to be like, I know this brewery now, I've come here enough times, you have a base knowledge about this brewery and how they work, versus like actually getting I don't know, I'm not trying to like say it's not a good idea, because I fully support it, I love that idea, but I just feel like in practice it would be very difficult for me to implement like some sort of tasting every week.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it is hard. It wouldn't necessarily be the easiest thing to implement, but I think it would be appreciated. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like it's not that I expect appreciation or some sort of acknowledgement for what we're doing, but I feel like in so many other aspects of different business parts that I do, they're like the people I buy things off, often I get some, like not get something, but like there's some sort of like reciprocation, and I find that beer is the worst of that. And I'm not saying I want like free t-shirts or pens or something, but I just feel like there's the least amount of reciprocation from the, like, I don't know, like wine. Like, for instance, most wine that we taste, we either taste with someone who brings a bottle and tastes with us, and oftentimes leaves the rest of the bottle with us, which we typically then go and share with our staff, which again is different than beer. But there's just something like small, like, I don't know, I just feel like beer is not doing a very good job of that. Like, and I feel like they do spoil, like, weirdly, not like the breweries that we buy from, but I've heard lots of stories of like, well, like, I won't name any names, people I know who work for sales at certain breweries that like they bring things to LCBO reps. You know what I mean? Like LCBO reps are getting free shit to carry their beer, and it's like, I can't
deals,
even free.
That stuff's all very real. It's all very real with like breweries that we don't work with.
Yeah, exactly. Like, that's the other thing. Like, and
nice
it's not that I want these things, but I talked to some guy he's a great guy. He's like a regular at a coffee shop. He used to own a bar in the city, and he's like, I used to get tickets to the Leafs. You know, like once a month I get a ticket to a Leafs game. And I'm like, well, yeah, you worked with Molson. Like, we don't bring that. Like, I'm not expecting that, but like something that I could help my staff out with. You know what I mean? Like, so I don't know what I like. Yeah, maybe 2 per case doesn't really make sense in the long run in terms of like operations, but like, I don't know, something, you know what I mean? And it's like, and I don't want like cash back, or I don't want free shit. I just want something that makes my business better. Like, so whatever we can do to do that. And maybe it's more just like, the brewery comes to my shop once in a while and does free samples for my customers. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. Maybe it's not even for my staff. Like, maybe you just come up and pour some free stuff to my customers for one night. Like, that's
like 2 ounces per person. Doesn't have to be much.
And and really, ultimately, whether it's a thing for your customers or if it's a thing for your staff, all of this is an investment in your ability to sell their product.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
And I feel like it's not like, and I don't think this is a crazy ask, because if you were like a one-time purchaser, then sure, different conversation than multiple years. Like, you know, this is like 4+ years of doing this for both of you. Like, maybe 5, I guess we're in 2025 right now, so it's probably coming up on 5. Like, that has got to mean something to the brewery for that level of support over time. So maybe, like, maybe the 2 cans isn't the optimal thing, but maybe there's just something that makes sense for both businesses to be like, look, help me get my staff on board that doesn't cost me money, so I can make sure that they doing it, because like you guys said, you got to sell 2-3 extra cans to make up for pouring 1 can. What if that can's a short can? How many of your staff are going to be able to, okay, you get 17 milliliters of this one, because that's all we can do to make sure that everyone gets it. Like, particularly if you're gathering your staff together and you're paying them an hourly rate on like after
That's
your
the other,
close.
yeah.
Yeah, because you mentioned that, and I didn't think about that. Is that you cutting the staff together? That's work. They're not just there for fun. Like they're there for fucking funsies of 17 mils of beer. Like they have to be paid. So there's got to be like a middle ground where it'll make sense for a brewery. Because Mark, you made some good points on that, and then Chris on the other hand, that makes sense for the stores. So it's I like that we're looking at both sides of all this though, because like all the different businesses have market forces and different things that are, pulling and pushing them away, and it's going to make sure that it works for everybody. So that's really what this is, because you guys are essentially, that's really the summary. I'd say the takeaway from this episode is that independent bottle shops are partners of a brewery, and closer partners than arguably anything else, because the LCBO are very hands off, and it's very like submit all your things and they get sampled and then you got to put it through, and you got these three dudes from, someone was explaining it to me, like
it's
how
all
it
very
all works.
corporate.
Super corporate, and then then you got to have a savvy beer buyer. Like I used to do beer trades when I was in Montreal with the beer buyer of the Queen and Coxwell store. Shouts to him, Brandon. He was a champion, so I used to always bring it, but he used to get me all the fire out here that I just made it easier. And like I went into that store, and it was one of the best stores because he was the beer buyer, and he was a craft beer fan, so he knew everything. He was going out and and so it was the best it could possibly be. And I'm like, so not every store is fire. A lot of stores suck, and they have New England IPA sitting on the Walmart shelf in the LCBOs because they don't have a good beer buyer who gives a flying fuck about where things go. So it's sort of independent, but you guys do. We've established that from the beginning. You guys have fridges and da-da-da. So anyway, I hope breweries can take a few things away and stores can take things away, and then maybe we could come to like a nice middle ground to just continue these relationships, because you guys are bridging the gap between consumers who might not want to pay shipping or buy 4-packs and it would rather go and get a great coffee and then go pick up their own 4-pack, a mixed 4-pack of a beer or 8-pack or case or whatever it might be. It's an interesting time in all of this, boys. So we got for 3 hours and 11. I knew it would be a lengthy one tonight. I feel like this is we went hard.
I told my wife I'd be home by 10.
Oh wow! You were dreaming on that, bro. You could have told us that beforehand. But honestly, guys, thank you both for taking the time. Both Nate and I appreciate you both immensely. What you guys do is a community service to craft beer, and truly, we just don't think that you guys get enough respect and props for what you are doing. I can't, once again, just to read it, I feel like we've fucking circle jerked the point, but what you guys do has genuinely impacted our lives for the better. It would be much more of a difficult process if you guys didn't exist in Ontario, and I appreciate you both immensely. I know Nate does too, and
really just as consumers, never mind as podcasters and as people in the scene, but just as consumers, in being able to access consumers. Some of the best shit in the in the province. The services that you guys offer are invaluable to us.
Yeah. Aggressively. So thank you both for even just, you guys are taking a financial risk and doing all this shit, and it's just it's extremely admirable. The very last thing, I know I mentioned it off air, but you guys, this is what inspired this pod, is you guys did a collaborative advent calendar over Christmas, and I knew you guys knew each other, but I didn't know it was like that real to collab on that. And I was like, do you guys want to just quickly touch on that, and then we'll bring it home?
Yeah, I mean, Mark and I have known each other for a while now, for a while now. Yeah. But the whole advent calendar, we kind of chatted about it, and I probably me more complaining because I complain about everything, but how hard making it all happen, and Mark had some connections, and we always both talked about how we love it. I guess it comes back to both of our loves for curating things, because we both took a lot of pleasure out of making an advent calendar. We were both talking about how much we like it, but it's not necessarily something that makes you a lot of money. So doing it in a collab way is a little bit better, because we were able to split some costs and, make things a little bit easier in that sense. But we ended up just picking 12 beers each. So we kind of split on the breweries we're going to pick, and then we picked the beers, and then we each got to write it up, which I love doing, and Mark kind of got me on to writing about beer, which I didn't realize I liked doing. So yeah, we kind of just picked 12 beers each, and then we both did our little write up. We sent it to each other, and then we both put together the packs kind of separately and printed out the write ups and put them all in. I know all of my customers that bought all the. I think we only ended up selling 12, which is not a great number, but or maybe 14, whatever, somewhere in that. But which kind of shows you where the appetite is for that kind of stuff. But we had a good time, and
we were really late with it. Usually I'll like announce that on November 1st. I think we waited until like mid to late November.
Really very late. Very late.
The idea behind it was like we want to support each other and like boost each other's shops up, and like we're friends, so it's like let's like if we do this together, then all of our customers will know about your shop. If they're in Hamilton, they can go to you. If your fans are in Waterloo, they can come see me. And then we each get to put our mark on it by like choosing 12 different beers and writing about them. So it was just like a full collab in that way. It did reduce like the workload. The last like 4 or 5 years I've done an Advent box on my own, and I've written 24 notes for every beer. This year I was like, I'm not going to do the box if I have to do all that work. So splitting it with Chris, like honestly, like reduced the work by 50%. And we got to boost each other up and, support what each other does, choose some great beers, talk about them. And it was like, I don't know. I'm down to run it back next year if you are.
Yeah, I feel like we'll probably do it for the next until we run out of boxes at least.
Such a cool idea, and just seeing the collaboration to us was like, man, this is what beer is all about. It's like I hadn't like Nate. I don't know if you'd seen anything like this before, but like guys like you guys, as far as the stores collaborating on something like this, was as cool as like two breweries collaborating, and
absolutely.
It shows that you guys live and breathe the ethos of craft beer, and that is why people should support you guys. You get it. You are craft beer. You understand the shit at the depth of it, and it's honestly,
like, really, it's
beautiful.
You're an essential part of the scene at this point.
Essential service, truly. It's and this was that collab was like the cherry on top. So honestly, guys, we're just huge fans of everything you're doing and incredibly appreciative, and everything, your perspective and your palettes and your curation, and fuck, man, we can kiss your asses all night, but I appreciate you guys a lot, seriously. And this was a long time coming, hanging out with you guys here, and we'll definitely, like we were saying off air, we'll get you guys on a separate one to hear about both businesses on our the Adjunct series, where we can get a little fluffy about both businesses and stuff. But
absolutely,
thank you for sharing your insights.
Such a pleasure chatting with both of you.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, and honestly, thank you for all the support too. Like buying, also shouting us out all the time too. I truly appreciate it. So
I wish you guys lived in Waterloo so I could sell you some too, but I do listen to the show, and I know that you shout out Sidewalk. Even without ever having been here, that like you can throw it out there and people will be able to come here and get something good. So I echo that sentiment. Like, thank you guys so much for that. Yeah.
Yeah, man. Look, it's a pleasure to, like, once again. If you both were in Hamilton, I would split that money equally. But it's like it's cool to know that even if people out there in Waterloo, Kitchener region, that we know there's somebody that's equivalent that we can vouch for, that could be like, look, man, the shit that I gas up out here at Duran, you can get the same experience out there with what Mark's doing, and it's cool for us to have that confidence to say that. And obviously with Evan at Wheel Brew was the third, as we were saying off air as well, and whatever he does in future, hopefully he does something similar, and that'll be, you guys will like the trifecta of the best, and all the breweries know it, and it's what you're doing. This is just a highlight that what you're doing isn't in vain, and that people do know and do respect what you're doing, and please don't stop. Please don't stop.
Yes,
it would be a large problem. I'll just move to Buffalo at that point. So to wrap it up, we'll finish up off air. But boys, where can everybody find you guys online? Chris, where can everyone find Duran?
At Duran Coffee, at Bottle
Durand
Bottle Shop.
Bottle Shop, yes.
Yeah.
And the address,
that's probably the best. We used to put our stuff online. We don't do it anymore. But if you hit us up there, we can let you know what we have for sure.
And the address is it Charlton or Caroline?
142 Charlton Avenue West. Yeah.
Yes, corner of Caroline.
Caroline and Charlton, yep.
Beautiful area. It's wonderful. There's no crackheads around. It's wonderful.
For the most part.
Yeah. I've never seen any around there, to be honest. I'm there all the fucking time. My dog loves shitting in that neighborhood. Yeah. Mark, where you at online and in real life?
We're at 46 King Street North in Waterloo, Ontario.
Gang.
You can purchase all the beers that we have in our shop on our website, princesscafe.ca. So if you're driving uptown, Princess Cafe is the business. You'll see a big Sidewalk Beer Shop sticker on the window. So it's Princess Cafe and Sidewalk Beer Shop. Beers available for purchase online, so you can come pick up princesscafe.ca, and on Instagram at Sidewalk Beer Shop and The Princess Cafe. I'm not on Twitter or anything like that. It's basically just Instagram and the website. So that's where you can find us.
That's perfect. So guys, make sure to check out both. Give them a follow. Keep an eye out. Both you guys post, regularly what you guys are getting and stuff. And at the very least, you're sharing that, what your customers are posting about. And a lot of people do tag you both in photos, which is super cool. And I definitely personally love seeing that. So stick around afterwards. We'll finish up off there and we'll let everyone get to sleep, because I imagine everyone but me has children and has to get up early. So guys, thank you so much for watching and listening. If you enjoyed the episode, smash the thumbs up, hit subscribe below, hit that notification bell. Nathaniel.
Ding.
So you know when the new drops. Follow us everywhere at BOS Podcast, at Nathan Does Beer. Check us out. Spotify, Apple Podcasts. I always forget what it's called. Give us 5 stars for Chris and Mark here, just being attractive gentlemen, doing fucking craft beer a favor. God damn it. And folks, we'll see you in the next one. Cheers, y'all.
Cheers.